Hokage I can fully level up with one click. Chapter 541 to 560. Chapter 541 Evil Dragon Pirates. After some tossing, Bastius had a bitter face, gathered a little in the few small vaults, and exchanged for a sloop. Under Smoker's murderous gaze, he left the dock. Seeing Qin Yu and his party who had disappeared completely, Smog couldn't help it, and angrily punched the rock beside him. Boom! Under the dull sound of collision, the rock cracked, spreading out cracks like cobwebs, causing the surrounding Navy soldiers and coolie merchants to walk away with fearful expressions on their faces. In their eyes, Smog lost to Qin Yu, but for ordinary people like them, Smog was still the gatekeeper of Rog Town. Feeling the awe cast by the surroundings, Smog's suffocation in his heart calmed down a little, and he snorted disdainfully, and was about to turn around and leave. Smog, you've fallen. Qingzi's lazy voice suddenly sounded. Do you think that Laxus is ignoring you? However, you can't blame him. After all, you are from two worlds. He is a person who lives on the edge of death and experiences himself all the time, but you are just willing to stay in the East China Sea and be a gatekeeper. Having said that, Qingzi looked at the cracked rock and said, you are here and you will be the emperor of the earth all your life. In his eyes, you will be the emperor of the earth. As he said, you don't even know how to be domineering in two colors, and there is no way you could be that kid's opponent. I'll give you two options now. I'll go back to the Navy headquarters with me for new training. Second, stay here and continue to be your soil emperor. It's the same sentence. Your vision determines your height. The slightly elongated voice seemed to be infused with magical sounds at this moment, hitting the depths of Smog's soul. After graduating from the Navy headquarters, Smoker applied to come to East Sea Raj Town in order not to be controlled by others. However, as Qingzi said, as the weakest existence in the four seas, this undoubtedly made Smaller's progress slower. After all, in the second half of the Great Waterway, it is a world where even the soldiers know armament hockey, not the East China Sea at all. Tens of millions of bounties are already on the ceiling. Feeling Qingzi's gaze, Smog's face turned pale all of a sudden. If it is an outsider's evaluation, he can laugh it off. But as the Navy, the highest goal is the Admiral. Now being reprimanded by Qingzi, who is a general, is simply unacceptable to Smog. However, when he thought of Qin Yu's ignoring coldness, and the feeling of powerlessness he tried just now, Smog's face sank, and he bit Kiba and said, okay, I will go back to the Navy headquarters with Admiral Qingzi. The next time we meet, I will definitely beat that guy. Well, then you pack up and let's go. Qingzi patted Smog on the shoulder comfortingly, and said, I'll get in touch with Marshal Sengoku first, and you'll meet me here later. Quote. Along with Qingzi and Smog's split action, two figures were hidden in the shadows of the pier. After quickly dodging onto a merchant ship, he headed straight for the direction Qin Yu and the others had left. 3 days later, not far from Coco West Village, a single-masted pirate ship quickly approached towards the Fishman Paradise. When she saw the huge building complex, the outline gradually became clearer. Nami, who was standing on the bow of the boat holding a phone call, was full of inexplicable excitement. Sister, you are at home, wait for me, as long as I finish the deal with the dragon, I can buy the Kokoja village, and then everyone will be free. Nami clenched the phone bug in her hand and quickly dropped it. After this sentence, he hung up the phone bug. Immediately, Nami didn't stay much, and hurriedly drove the sloop to the Murloc Paradise. In Kokoja village, Nuo Chigao, who is Sister Nami, listened to the busy tone of the phone bug, and her face changed drastically. She hurriedly opened the door, and was about to rush to inform the people in the village, but the crowd of figures she saw in front of her made her complexion change drastically. However, Nami didn't know all this. Now she just desperately wants to tell the dragon about the 100 million Bailey, and then tell the village about the redemption of the Kokoja village. Let the many oppressed villagers say goodbye to the life of hanging knives on their heads completely. It's here, the Fishman Paradise is in front. After Nami moored the sloop, she clenched the black gold card in her hand, and turned over and got off the boat. She hadn't brought all the 100 million Baileys with her now, and now Nami was just eager to get an affirmative answer from the dragon. The 100 million Bailey will be offered with both hands. Standing on the shore and looking from a distance, you can clearly see that on the huge building, there is a flag symbolizing the evil dragon pirates, fluttering in the wind. Once upon a time, this was a nightmare for Nami and even the entire Kokoja village. Thinking that she will be able to say goodbye soon, this kind of nightmare shadow, Nami clenched the black gold card in her hand and hurried to Murloc Paradise. Along the way, Nami, one of the cadres of the Murloc pirates, was not blocked by the Murlocs who were stationed along the way because of her status. When she finally stood in front of the tightly closed gate of Fishman Paradise, Nami let out a deep breath, plucked up her courage, put her hands on the door, and pushed it open suddenly. This gate was full of fear for her in the past. At this moment, in her mind, as long as today passes, everything has changed. Squeak. The thick door was suddenly pushed open. Instantly attracted all the Murlocs in the paradise. Including the evil dragon lying on the beach chair, smiling recklessly, cast a playful look as always. What's wrong, the little cadre of our pirate group? It seems to be a little early to come back this time. Evil Dragon sat upright on the beach chair, grinned and said cruelly, "It won't be because he was bullied, he intends to let us help come on out." As a member of the team, of course, this is no problem, but it takes a lot of money to let them shoot. Are you ready? As soon as these words fell, there was a lot of unbridled laughter in the field. Nami, our little thief cat, as long as you give me 5 million Baileys, I can think about it. After drinking this bottle of wine, as long as you don't get drunk, I will avenge you. You stinky octopus, 5 million is so little. That's underestimating the earning ability of our little thief cat, at least 10 million Bailey, and after you finish drinking, do you still remember what to do? In the huge courtyard, unbridled laughter sounded one after another. Nami was already used to the faces of these so-called companions. Normally, every time she came back, she would slam the door and ignore them directly, and ran back to the top floor to draw a nautical chart, so as to avoid the enemy who was chasing her. But this time was different. Thinking of Kokoja village and the promise agreement 5 or 6 years ago, Nami was determined to face it. Huo Ran raised his head, met the eyes of the evil dragon, and said in a deep voice, "I want to leave the evil dragon pirates. I have earned enough 100 million to redeem the village of Kokoja." Chapter 542 _ Sadness is greater than death. Are you leaving the dragon pirates? Aaron stood upright with a gloomy face, the huge body of more than 2 meters 5, like an iron tower. The shadows cast give people a feeling of inexplicable depression. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be filled with a chill like a bone, echoing in the courtyard, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. The eyes of the dozens of Murlocs in the field turned evenly and locked onto Nami, as if they had become an invisible big hand, clenching their hearts. However, when she thought of the safety of Kokoja village, Nami's pretty face turned pale. She bit Kiba's gaze at the evil dragon, and said decisively, "Aaron, this is our agreement. You said that we can collect 100 million yuan. Let me buy Kokoja village." "Buy the Kokoja village?" the dragon asked back. The haze on his face was instantly replaced by a mocking laughter. "Ha ha, Nami, you were right, I did promise you. However, I didn't expect you to tell me so quickly and swear that it's enough for 100 million. Speaking of which, the evil dragon stretched out his rough hand, pressed it on Nami's shoulder, and said with a smile, "It's just that I need to see 100 million Bailey, but I saw Lieutenant Colonel Mouse just now, and it seems like he's gone. You Kokoja village, I really hope that you hide Bailey from being discovered." The slightly elusive voice was like a heavy hammer hitting the soul, making Nami's face pale all of a sudden, and subconsciously raised her hand to fan the dragon. Snapped. A dull crash sounded suddenly. Without any fancy, the dragon directly clasped Nami's wrist. Looking at the ferocious and unusual face of the dragon, Nami roared hysterically. "Evil dragon, you broke the promise, you never thought about it, let me go." The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the huge courtyard. However, in the face of Nami's accusations, the reply to her was undoubtedly unbridled laughter. The evil dragon smiled even more savagely, pulled off Nami's sleeve, and said, "When your arm is branded with the mark of our evil dragon pirates, you have no choice." Before I could finish my sentence, when I saw the mark on Nami's arm that had completely changed its shape. The evil dragon and the others were startled for a moment, and then the laughter sounded even more overwhelming. "Ha ha, no wonder you were able to collect 100 million Baileys so quickly, so you joined this unknown pirate group." The dragon laughed and said, "Nami, I advise you to have the mind to play around here. Let's go back to Kokoja village, maybe you can still see the last side of your righteous sister." Quote. "Of course, if you think I'm deceiving your feelings, let your new nameless pirates come to me for revenge." The unbridled words struck Nami's nerves like a heavy hammer. Originally, the already pale complexion turned pale like a piece of paper in an instant. "When I think of Belmer, he lost his life because he rescued himself. If even the righteous sister Nuo Chigao was implicated because of herself, she lost her life." For Nami, this psychological pressure was enough to completely crush the belief that she had forcibly supported over the years. Thinking of this, Nami Yuhi rolled her eyes, turned around and ran away. Looking at this scene, Kruby, the leader of the evil dragon pirates, pouted and said, "Boss Evil Dragon, are we going to stop her?" "Stop her," Evil Dragon teased and said aloud, "Why stop her? Let her see what a nightmare is. If that woman is killed, it can be regarded as an example to 100 people. Let that girl Nami completely break her heart and draw me a nautical chart for the rest of my life. In the East China Sea, my evil dragon is the most powerful existence." "Boss Aaron, you're right. That girl has completely become a slave of our evil dragon pirates. We Murlocs are the highest existence." The ruthless laughter echoed in the Murloc paradise. Nami, who rushed out of the door, her eyes were already filled with Yuhi, her hot tears kept rolling down, and she rushed towards the Kokoja village on the other side of the mountain. At this moment, Nami could not wait to fly quickly with her wings on. Kilometers, 5 kilometers, 10,000 meters. I don't care about the gravel on the ground, nor the rough road. I don't know how long she ran, but Nami only knew that her vision was already blurred by tears. Looking at the orange orchard that gradually became clear, there were also footprints, a messy path, a broken gate, and the blood of the orangutan Yuhi splattered on the ground. Nami's heart, as if it was hit hard, quickened her pace and rushed straight into the house. No, sister, you can't be okay, you can't be okay." Boom. The remaining half of the door was directly knocked open. Nami stumbled and fell to the ground at once. Feeling the remaining heat like blood on the floor, Nami's heart seemed to be tightly squeezed by an invisible big hand. Facing the scene in front of her, she didn't dare to look at it. She is afraid. Afraid to see the righteous sister who was implicated to death by her. It's just that the thought just came to mind, and the words that fell in his ears shook Nami's nerves as if filled with magical sounds. "Welcome back." The simple 4-character slogan was the last straw for Nami. "The moment I looked up in a hurry, I was the first to see an unexpected figure." "Nami, are you all right?" Nuo Chigao suddenly stepped forward and hugged Nami into his arms. Smelling the familiar scent of body fragrance, Nami Yuhi's eyes burst, and she burst into tears and shook her head and said, I'm fine, I just thought I've hurt my sister again. It's my fault. I know that the dragon will never keep its promise, so I have to make a deal with him. If it wasn't for me being too self-willed, sister, you don't need to be hurt. The intermittent cry, like a helpless child crying. The belief that has been suppressed for 6 or 7 years, and has been held to, suddenly collapsed. This is for any one person. That is more painful than death. There is nothing more sad than death. In the narrow house, hoarse and helpless voices echoed. The villagers who have already gathered here, holding various agricultural tools, have already caught Yuhi's eyes. Although they have already heard from Chinyu's mouth, the fact that Nami will eventually meet. But when I think about it, for 6 or 7 years, I have been using my thin shoulders to carry their Kokoja village. Nami, who is safe for everyone, is now being bullied and crying helplessly. That anger and resentment are enough to make people abandon life and death and honor. All this will become an undead hatred. Chapter 543 I will take you to kill. I'm sorry, but I am incapable of taking Kokoja village back from the dragon's hands. I'm sorry, I killed Bellmeyer, she would never have died without me. I'm sorry everyone. Nami lowered her hands helplessly, raised her head and started crying. The sheriff standing behind Chinyu, and even Dasichi, looked at this scene, and Yuhi also squinted. This time, if it wasn't for Chinyu and Dasichi, they would have arrived in time to drive back Lieutenant Colonel Mouse and the others. I am afraid that waiting for Nami will be a collapse like despair. Laxus, can you help Nami? Dusky couldn't help saying. As soon as these words fell, they immediately attracted a lot of attention in the field. Help. Chinyu smiled warmly, and in full view, he stood up straight and walked slowly towards Nami. In the end, under the gaze of everyone, he rubbed Nami's head and said with a smile, "We are family. How can I watch my family get bullied as a member of my family?" Having said that, Chinyu reached out and gently scraped the hot tears from Nami's cheeks, then said with a smile, "Let's go, I'll take you to kill." The small voice, at this moment, echoed in the small room like thunder, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. The face of Uchiha Chinyu, these words suddenly appeared, and the expressions of the people present suddenly changed drastically. Especially Nami, she couldn't help grabbing Chinyu's arm, she shook her head anxiously and said, "No, don't go. Evil dragons are the strongest beings in the East China Sea, and their murlocs have unique innate advantages. Also, there is Lieutenant Colonel Mouse. If you let him know that you have destroyed the good thing that he colluded with the dragon, you will also become a bounty criminal." Bounty for criminals? Dusky couldn't help but startled. After all, they are still good people now, and they are wearing a layer of bounty hunters. However, they attacked Lieutenant Colonel Mouse just now. In case, because of the evil dragon, they got on the list of the Navy headquarters reward. For the Fairy Tale Guild. I am afraid it will be difficult to move in the future. Thinking of this, Dasichi looked at Chinyu eagerly. Haha, no one has looked down on me like this for a long time. Chinyu laughed dryly and patted Dasichi on the shoulder. However, you are right to worry, we are still developing in Fairy Tale. Then I'll change my identity and go for a trip. Change an identity. As soon as these words fell, the expressions of the people present couldn't help but stagnate. The next moment, before they could react, the endless black energy quickly rolled back from Chinyu's body. The body that was originally more than 2 meters changed again at this moment. The white bones, the piercing cold, and the flaming eyes of Yuhi's soul. In particular, the scepter held in his hand slammed to the ground like the sound of the soul hitting everyone's heart. The black mist that had been pouring out madly was completely dissipated. The long-lost body of the Bone King Mori was the first to catch everyone's eyes. Looking at the huge skeleton in front of him, the pupils of those present suddenly shrank. Especially Dusky, a bounty hunter active in Rogue Town and the first half of the Great Passage. When he saw Chin Yu's appearance clearly, he couldn't believe it. Mr. Laxus, you are the great skeleton demon. Dusky couldn't help but ask anxiously. At this moment, she finally understood the reason why Chin Yu did not let Bastille follow him ashore. In the face of the identity of the skeleton demon, as long as the information is a little well-informed, you will definitely know what the skeleton demon that shocked the Great Channel during this period of time actually exists. In particular, in the Chambord Archipelago, the matter of beheading the Tianlong people in public has subverted the world's cognition. Woo! Chin Yu spit out a cold breath, feeling the power that he had not seen for a long time, and looked at Dasichi. The cold voice also sounded. What's the matter, are you afraid? Laxus is me, and the skeleton demon is also me. If you don't adapt, I won't keep you. The words fell, Chin Yu's deep-set eyes, and the jumping soul flame, stopped on Dasichi for a while. In all eyes, he walked out of the house slowly. That shocking gesture, the moment she stepped outside the door, Nami suddenly reacted and hurriedly chased out. This move instantly formed a chain reaction. Whether it is Dusky or the villagers gathered here, there is no one to be able to calm down completely. After all, in their eyes, Chin Yu's current posture is too terrifying. If not, Chin Yu had just rescued Nuo Chigao and chased away Lieutenant Colonel Mouse. Still here to save Nami. They were already scared away by the scene in front of them. However, when they just rushed out of the house, a powerful magic force rolled back like a frenzy, and the huge magic circle bloomed from Chin Yu's feet at this moment. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be plunged into darkness. Gorilla Yuhi became brighter and brighter on Chin Yu's body. The next moment, the scepter clenched in his hand, without any bells and whistles, suddenly stomped towards the ground. Intermediate undead summoning magic bone dragon. When in the void, the huge blood color bloomed like fireworks, and finally formed a huge Gorilla Yuhi magic circle of dozens of meters. Before everyone could react, the huge magic circle opened like a door. Roar. Like the sound of a dragon's roar from hell, it sounded without warning. The next moment, the huge body of white bones rushed out of the magic circle. Yes, it's a dragon. No, that's a bone dragon. Exclamations suddenly remembered in the crowd. Looking at the tens of meters of huge bone dragons entrenched in the void, exuding a terrifying breath. The villagers present had already fallen to the ground. While trembling all over, the eye sockets were about to split, and the face was more unbelievable. Come on, I'll take you to kill. Chin Yu looked back at Nami, and the scepter in his hand slammed to the ground. The flying technique enveloped Nami directly, and before she could react, she quickly levitated. The violent scene surprised everyone in the field, even Dusky. Looking at the unfamiliar but familiar back in front of him, a struggle flashed across Dusiki's pretty face. Finally, biting Yuhi's lips, he said anxiously, Mr. Laxus, please take me with you. Bring you. Chin Yu looked back at Dasichi. It can be said that this time to face Dasichi in another identity is also a kind of test. Fairy Tail does need members, but Chin Yu will always make Laxus and Ain's Gong's character template identity unified. Only the last identity remains. Uchiha Chin Yu. Chapter 544 The Appearance of Crazy Hanging. It is precisely because of this reason that Chin Yu gave the dragon a slaughtering knife in Kokoja village. After all, a pirate with a bounty of 20 million and a bounty of 1 billion is simply a world of difference. When looking at Dasichi, Chin Yu repeated again, don't you regret it? Facing Chin Yu, it was like a torture from the soul. Dasichi bit Yuhi's lips and shook his head. you will always be Mr. Laxus in Dasiki's mind. Always will be. Hearing these words, Chinyu was stunned for a moment, and then laughed out loud. Sure enough, he is a smart person, then let's go. The voice fell, and the magic power instantly enveloped Dusky, before everyone could react. The giant dragon hovering in the sky, under the sudden blow of the huge white bone wings, swept away towards the Murloc paradise. The violent scene made everyone left in the scene startled for a while, and then they all turned to look at the only sheriff in Kokoja village. Feeling the gazes from all around, the sheriff looked at the figure of a giant dragon that turned into a black dot in the distance, and said solemnly, "It seems that this time Nami has met a good person." However, what happened just now, if anyone asks, we don't know anything. Over the years, Nami has done enough for our Kokoja village. Now it's our turn. As soon as these words fell, the villagers present secretly clenched their fists and nodded in agreement. On the other hand, in Fishman Paradise, the huge courtyard has not changed because of Nami's departure. On the contrary, because of the farce just now, the huge courtyard became more lively. Haha, evil dragon boss, you said, if Nami goes back to Kokoja village and sees the so-called righteous Navy who even killed her sister, what kind of expression would she have? Said with a smile. It can be said that in these years, Nami's existence, for them, is simply a place to make fun. I think that girl will cry now, come back to us, and then shout, let us pay for our lives. Che, I think she will kneel on the ground and beg us for mercy, saying that she will not dare to do so. Why don't you tell me, will Nami seek revenge for her new nameless pirate group? The scene suddenly became more noisy. Looking at this group of noisy little brothers, Evil Dragon smiled hideously and patted Little 8 on the shoulder. Why don't you talk? Xiaoba, you are the same as before, you are sentimental. We Murlocs stand on the highest point of the race. The so-called human beings can only be our slaves. No, I should say, not even a slave. If that girl didn't have the talent for drawing nautical charts, I would have turned her head off already. Speaking of this, the evil dragon stood up all of a sudden, raised his hands, and said with a big laugh as if Kun was facing the world, what's more, my evil dragon is the strongest existence in the East China Sea. If she really dares to find her the so-called people come against me, I'll let everyone try what it's like to be desperate. The awe-inspiring voice reverberated in the sky, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Hearing the words, the Murlocs present hurriedly planned to cheer and flatter. It's just that this idea has just emerged in their minds, and they haven't waited for them to react. An unusually cold voice came down along with a huge projection in the sky. You mean me? The simple 5 words seemed to be spit out word by word. It fell on the ear, like a heavy hammer, shaking everyone's nerves. The huge black shadow made people feel inexplicably depressed at this moment. As if there was an invisible big hand, clenching the heart tightly. Before I could think about it, the Murlocs present hurriedly looked up at the sky. The first scene that came into view made the pupils shrink, and the eye sockets almost split. A huge body of dozens of meters, with a stony posture. Yuhi like a god of death. Standing on top of the white bone dragon head, it was a terrifying figure like the Emperor's personal relationship. At this moment, it shook the nerves of all Murlocs. Before they could react, Chinyu's magic power was turning. Suspended and fell on the huge dragon. The moment he stepped into the Murloc paradise, a biting chill swept away like a frenzy. Wherever he passed, ice crystals spread rapidly, and the swimming pool connected to the sea was also frozen. For a time, the temperature of the whole world suddenly dropped by more than 10 degrees, so that the Murloc, who was known for his physical fitness, couldn't help shivering. As the number 1 figure in the pretending world, Chinyu knew exactly how the Bone King appeared. That is completely to describe the crazy hanging. Otherwise, it's out of the frame. Facing the sudden appearance of the uninvited guests and the terrifying existence of the giant bone dragon as a pet, the Murlocs present gulped a mouthful of saliva, and then subconsciously turned their attention to the evil dragon. At this moment, the boss who was usually boasted as the strongest in the East China Sea became their last straw. "Who the hell are you?" The dragon's face sank and he couldn't help but say. "Who is it?" Chinyu looked at the dragon coldly and said, "Didn't you say that you want to make me despair? Why are you asking me who I am?" "Originally, if you could keep your promise, I might have forgiven you for Jinbei's sake, but now I've changed my mind." "Boss Jinpei." Xiaoba's expression changed, and he never thought that the skeleton in front of him would meet Jinpei, who was almost as powerful as Tiger in their eyes. That means that the strength of the person in front of him may not be much different from that of Jinping. However, as soon as the idea emerged, the dragon moved suddenly. With his right hand on the beach chair beside him, he suddenly pulled out a huge shark sickle. With great strides, he charged towards Chinyu like a ferocious tiger. The speed is so fast that it fully utilizes its 20 million strength to the ultimate. The distance of more than 10 meters was instantly shortened in the eyes of the Murlocs. Before they could react, the big sword in the dragon's hand had already made a stern sound of breaking through the air, and slashed towards Chinyu. The ferocious roar was even more incessant. "You bastard, don't mention that coward's name in front of me, die for me." When an awe-inspiring roar echoed between heaven and earth. However, it was soon drowned out by the crisp metal crashing sound. The slashing slash of the big sword, with a tenacious posture, suddenly stopped a foot away from the big skeleton demon in front of him. At this moment, a slender white bone finger, like an insurmountable mountain, blocked the blade. Accompanied by the crisp cracking sound, the hideous shark sickle-toothed sword spread out cobweb-like cracks in front of everyone's eyes. The next moment, the sound was cut off. Facing this calm scene, a very absurd thought suddenly appeared in the hearts of the Murlocs present. The big skeleton demon in front of them is probably stronger than the Murloc old sea man Jinping in their eyes. "I take back what I said just now," Chinyu said coldly, and Yuhi's soul flaming eyes lifted, and he said lightly to the evil dragon, "I am here to kill you." Chapter 545 _ Bounty for the strength of 1 billion. "Kill us." The dragon was startled at first, and then roared in anger. "I want to see how you kill us, and everyone will do it for me." The roar was like thunder, echoing throughout the courtyard. Standing on the head of the bone dragon, Nami's expression changed suddenly after witnessing this scene. Doesn't he need to use this bone dragon, and doesn't he need our help? Evil dragon is the strongest existence in the East China Sea with a reward of 20 million Bailey. The hurried voice came out of Nami's mouth. In her eyes, Chinyu's strength and posture, the most exaggerated, still cannot be overwhelmed. The evil dragon has left a huge shadow in her heart over the years. However, as soon as these words fell, Dasky, who was standing by the side, patted Nami's shoulder with a solemn expression, and said, "Nami, if, in your eyes, a reward of 20 million is a symbol of the strong, then let's take a look first, this reward order." Quote. Bounty order. Nami couldn't help but startled when she saw the brand new reward order that Dusky took out with her backhand. The first to see, is Chinyu's terrifying posture now. However, when his eyes fell on the reward amount, his pupils shrank suddenly, and his eye sockets almost split. 1, 2, 3, 4. A total of 9 zeros, then, that's a reward of 1 billion. The voiceless exclaimed, the words were full of disbelief. For Nami, who has always been a miser, the number of Baileys is simply arousing her nerves. It can be said that Chinyu, who has a reward of 1 billion, is simply a huge wealth in walking for Nami. But it is also clear that there is a gap between 1 billion and 20 million. That's a world of difference. Bang bang bang. A series of heavy blows reverberated in the Murloc paradise below. The shark sickle in the dragon's hand had already been shattered into several pieces. Looking at the whole body in front of him, covered with a steel-like armament Hokage, like an iron tower, Chinyu stood motionless in the same place. His face was full of disbelief. "No, it's impossible, we fish are the strongest, I'm going to kill you." The dragon roared fiercely. The 5 fingers of the right hand were suddenly clenched, and the meteor rushed towards Chinyu with a big stride, and the heavy punch slammed into Chinyu's shoulder. Boom! The dull collision sound reverberated, and under the impact of the huge force, the airwaves rolled up and rolled back around. However, looking at Chinyu, who was still standing in the same place like an iron tower, motionless, in the huge courtyard, all the Murlocs present seemed to be clenched by an invisible big hand. "You, who are you? In the East China Sea, there is no such thing as you." The evil dragon was stunned, and roared in horror. However, as soon as these words fell, Chinyu raised his head suddenly. The flame of Yuhi's soul was jumping in his eyes, and his eyes were facing each other, and he said coldly, "I said, I am the one who killed you. Also, don't you keep saying that Murlocs are the highest race. Hiding in the East China Sea and pretending to be a king is the biggest mistake in your life, and it's also the key to your incomparability to Shiping." Speaking of this, a huge magic power bloomed under Chinyu's feet like a frenzy. The blue magic circle blooms like fireworks. The next moment, before Nami and the others could react, the bone dragon flew away as if frightened. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves, and the dragon didn't have time to think about it, so he quickly pulled away and retreated violently. What he has to do now is to escape into the sea. As Murlocs, as long as they enter the sea, it is their world. However, this idea has just emerged, and it is not until the dragon takes 2 or 3 steps. A huge tidal wave of magic power descended from the sky with an awe-inspiring rolling gesture. The huge impact force directly pressed the evil dragon that fled away to the ground. Do not. It should be said that as long as the Murlocs are in the Murloc paradise, they will all be crushed to the ground. Super magic, sky fall. The ice cold spit out, and the sound of the magic array unfolding resounded like a bell. The next moment, before the dragon could wait for the Murlocs to react, a low-pitched blast of air suddenly echoed. Boom! The huge ability light, Jinchuriki column, seems to have penetrated down from the 9 heavens. The air that passed along the way seemed to be pushed away by an invisible big hand. The speed is so fast that it descends into the Murloc paradise in the blink of an eye. Don't. The dragon just had time to let out a hysterical growl. The next moment, the entire Murloc paradise, and even the port with a radius of tens of thousands of meters, was instantly enveloped by the attack. Huge air waves, venting like a frenzy, quickly spread around. The rock formations were crumbling, and the endless trees were directly overturned. Even the village of Kokoja, which is more than 10 miles away, was shocked by this earth-shattering explosion. Even the seniors of Nuauchi could clearly feel the turbulent waves. Is this the strength of a reward of 1 billion? Nami, who took the bone dragon and fled to the sea in the distance, turned pale all of a sudden. In her eyes, fighting is just like a fistfight. You punch, I punch. It never occurred to me that Chinyu would wipe out the entire Murloc paradise, and even the harbor where it was located, on the map as soon as he made a move. Compared with Nami, Dusky, who was standing beside her, had the same expression. Originally, I thought that in Rog Town, Chinyu, as Laxus, fought against Mr. Point 3 and the General Qingzi, and it was already amazing. However, compared with the scene in front of him, he was instantly turned into scum. I don't know how long it took, but everything returned to calm. The original location of the Fishman Paradise has long been replaced by a huge deep pit. The bone dragon that fled to the sea, after receiving the order, fluttered its wings and rushed towards the ruins. When they came to the sky, Nami and Dasky discovered that it was not the entire Murloc paradise that was wiped out. At least, where Chinyu was standing, there was still a stone Jinchuriki column that stood out from the crowd. Looking at Chinyu, who was completely intact under the violent impact, the expressions of Nami and Dusky became even more unbelievable. Let's just ask, if they are allowed to suffer this kind of attack, they will definitely die waiting for the result. The strength of a billion reward is completely indescribable in words. Let's go and meet our guests. Chinyu slammed the scepter in his hand towards the ground. At the moment when the magic power surged out, the whole body quickly flew into the air, and finally landed on the dragon. After receiving Chinyu's order, the bone dragon made a soaring dragon roar. The next moment, with an awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air, he fluttered away. For a time, the evil dragon pirates that had been traversing the East China Sea for a long time was completely brought to an end. Chapter 546 for example, killing Kibukai. Princess, we shouldn't follow, that kind of existence is not something we can deal with at all. A hurried voice sounded in the forest. On the cheeks hidden under the huge cloak, the color of fear could not be hidden at all. As one of the mission executors of Mr. Point 3 this time. Originally, he planned to follow these three secretly, to take revenge for the billions of elders behind, and even the members of the Baroque Work Club. While providing convenience, it could also increase their chances of promotion. I never imagined that such a terrifying scene would be encountered. The pirates who offered a bounty of 20 million Baileys immediately erased them from the map. Who would believe it if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes? His spine is still chilling when he recalls it a little. Stop talking, our ship is in front of us. As long as we get there, we can leave safely. The only thing we can do now is to pray for that guy and he didn't find us. The girl with long blue hair, in the woods fast bends. A pair of long, white, jade-like legs that even a slender cloak could not cover. Looking at the gradually clear port through the trees in the forest, the girl's pretty face showed a hint of anxiety. Arrive. The girl rushed out eagerly, the moment she stood firm. The first scene that caught her eye made her pupils shrink suddenly. The huge bone dragon and the white bone figure leaning on a scepter shook her nerves like a death god at this moment. Princess, run away quickly, I'll stop him. A low, urgent cry suddenly sounded. The man who followed the girl, the curly hair hidden under the cloak, spit out 2 rounds of machine guns directly. The next moment, without any bells and whistles, it suddenly turned. Bang bang bang. The fiery bullets fell head-on towards Chinyu like a gust of wind and rain. The violent scene surprised Dusky and Nami. However, before they could react, the scepter in Chinyu's hand suddenly stomped on the ground. A cold voice suddenly echoed. Second-level magic, death imprisonment. PFF'd. The pitch-black mist exploded from Chinyu's body like a frenzy. With an extremely fast attitude, it passed the incoming bullets, turned into black tentacles, and quickly spread away on the girl and the big man. Before they could react, the body, which had been moving freely, lost control in an instant, unable to move. As for those so-called bullets, they fell on Chinyu's body like a rain of bananas, and finally scattered on the ground. After finishing all this, Chinyu held the scepter and walked towards the two of them. You, don't come here, we are members of the Pakistan Rock Work Society. You dare to kill us, let our president know that it is a dead end. A hysterical roar came from the man's mouth. In the face, this terrifying skeleton, the legs shrouded in the cloak at this moment, is simply uncontrollable, shaking like a twist. However, in the face of the threat of these words, Chinyu seemed to be completely unknown. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he crossed the man's side and came to the girl's front. The right hand, which was made of bones, suddenly came down. He directly lifted the cloak covering the girl's head. Sky blue hair fell down like a waterfall. Which delicate and tender white face is full of pale colors. However, in the face of Chinyu, who is close at hand, Yuhi's eyes and Yuhi's lips are clenched tightly, giving the feeling that he is trying his best to suppress the fear of Chinyu in his heart. He just refuses to let himself beg for mercy, and even whine. When meeting Chinyu's deep soul flame eyes, the slender hand hidden in the cloak suddenly moved. Zira's burning sound suddenly sounded. The fast-burning gunpowder quickly spread to the explosives clenched in her slender hands. It was her last resort of suicide. When she joined the Baroque Work Club, she was already holding onto it, and she would die if she was in danger that could not be solved. However, as soon as the burning gunpowder was lit, it was quickly pinched out by the big hand of the bones. A cold, bone-chilling voice immediately fell in their ears. Princess Wei Wei, don't be too impulsive, maybe we can talk. Chinyu looked at the blue-haired girl in front of him. If Chinyu remembered correctly, she should have just joined Baroque Works, the princess of the desert country Alabasta, Neferutali Wei Wei. As for the wretched uncle beside him, he was the captain of the Kingdom Guard, EPUB. Originally, when Chinyu was in Rog Town, he noticed the two of them. However, I didn't expect that Vivi and EPUB would follow this place in order to break into the Baroque Work Club as soon as possible. Originally, Chinyu was still thinking about where the Bone King would settle. Now it seems that Alabasta, which is occupied by Chihuahai and the sand crocodile K-Roctal, may be a good place. Princess Wei Wei, Dusky and Dusky couldn't help but startled. Looking at the beautiful girl in front of her, and the temperament exuding from her whole body, it is indeed the name of the princess in Chinyu's mouth, which is unusually consistent. What nonsense are you talking about? What is Princess Wei Wei? We are just members of the Baroque Works. Don't get me wrong. EPUB explained anxiously. As the princess of a big country, no matter how weak the country's strength is, it can be said that the identity must not be exposed, otherwise it will fall on those who have a heart and become a bargaining chip for coercion. That will probably speed up, and Alabasta will disintegrate. Haha, it's interesting, it's really interesting. Chinyu stretched out the big hand of the skeleton, and under the nervous eyes of Wei Wei and EPUB, he gently rubbed Wei Wei's head and said, "You can deny it, but it doesn't hurt between us. I just want to tell you that you are not able to deal with the people behind the Baroque Works." As soon as these words fell, Wei Wei, who was originally very afraid of Chinyu's big skeleton hand, suddenly changed her expression and asked eagerly, You are not the president of Baroque Works, are you?" "No way, we've heard his voice, you're not him." After seeing it with his own eyes, Chinyu was able to use his hands to reach a distance of tens of thousands of meters. The shadow of fear was clearly imprinted in their hearts. If the person in front of him is really their Alabasta's enemy, I am afraid that the most warriors are not worth a casual blow. Hee, you girl is really interesting, I like it very much. Chinyu patted Wei Wei's shoulder with a dry smile, and said, "However, liking is one thing, but this time, I am looking for you because I intend to come here. A collaboration. For example, kill Shichibu Heike Rakdar." Chapter 547 Meet the Navy Hero Garp. Kill Shichibukai. The cold voice exploded like thunder at this moment, shaking everyone's nerves. Shichibukai's reputation, but even Nami, who lives in the East China Sea, knows a thing or two. Not to mention, Dusky and Vivi and EPUB, who are located in the first half of the Great Channel, Alabasta. What nonsense are you talking about? We are not from Alabasta, and we don't need to kill Krokdar. EPUB's expression changed, and he quibbled in a hurry. However, as soon as these words fell, she saw Wei Wei shaking her head, looking stubbornly at Chinyu, and said, "EPUB, don't say it, he is not from the Baroque Works." "I want to know, why are you so sure I want to kill Rockdale?" On the same day, in Alabasta, Vivi found out about the dance fans, which was related to the Pakistan rock works. However, he has always been suspicious of the president lurking behind the scenes. But now Chinyu suddenly wants to make such a strange transaction, which undoubtedly makes Wei Wei more sure of her guess, and there are clues that she has lurked in the Barak workplace during these hours. The most important point, the strong disdain to lie. Especially, this ruthless young man in front of him. Princess Ikulem suddenly became anxious. However, Wei Wei quickly glared at him and swallowed the words that came to her mouth. Seeing this scene, Chinyu withdrew his big hand and snapped his fingers. The imprisoning magic that was originally wrapped around them also collapsed. Hee, it seems that Princess Wei Wei also has the sincerity to continue the conversation. That is to show my sincerity. Let me recover his freedom first. Chinyu gave a cold smile and said, however, if you want to escape, don't do it. Blame me for being ruthless. Your Majesty Laxus, don't worry, we won't run away, but I want to know why you are sure that the mastermind behind Barak works is Kibu Heike Rockdoll. Vivi loosened her numb body a little, hurriedly asked. After all, even she and Ikulem, who have spent a lot of effort over the years, cannot be sure who is behind the scenes. As soon as Chinyu appeared now, he opened his mouth and pointed, and showed such a positive attitude, which really surprised them. I guess, do you believe it? Chinyu glanced at Wei Wei lightly and said, besides, what you want to do is not to ask me why. Yes, agree to the deal, and cancel the deal. Also, my current identity is not Laxus, you can call me Ains Gong. The awe-inspiring voice was mixed with undoubted taste between the lines. When Ikulem heard the words, his face became anxious, and he was about to say something, but was stopped by Wei Wei's probe. Lord Ains, I don't mean to offend, but this time the transaction is too implicated. Seeing Chinyu's unquestionable expression, Wei Wei gave up the question and said, if Lord Ains, I really plan to trade with us, and I still need to contact my father to confirm it. Quote. So, I hope Your Excellency Ains can give us enough time to contact Alabasta. As a princess of a big country, she also dared to sneak into the Pakistan rock workplace for undercover investigation. Wei Wei's courage and means are not comparable to those of an embroidered vase. Facing Wei Wei's stubborn gaze, Chinyu laughed loudly and said, as expected, it's a woman who doesn't allow men. However, don't worry, I, Ains Ool Gong, will not be hard on others. I agreed to your request. Just, I hope you will go with me on the next journey. Moving forward together. Wei Wei was startled at first. However, before she could reply, Chinyu's deep-set eyes, the flame of his soul jumped slightly, and said, okay, this status is temporarily over, then, I'm still the Laxus in your eyes, don't let me outsiders know. The inexplicable words made the people in the field stunned for a moment. Only Dasichi guessed one or two, and then saw the huge bone dragon, like a black mist, scattered between the sky and the earth. The posture of the Bone King transformed by Chinyu also dissipated directly in front of everyone, restoring Laxus' cold and arrogant face. Looking at this, the faces they met in Rog Town, the tension and oppression in the hearts of Vivi and Ikulem dissipated a little after a while. It was soon seen that behind the huge coast, a huge warship emerged. The navy flag fluttering on it, representing justice, made them stunned for a moment. Whether it's Dusky or Wei Wei, they are all people who have been active in the first half of the Great Passage. This huge warship in front of me is a multi-masted warship, a ship that only appears in the Great Waterway. Moreover, the person who can own this kind of warship is definitely a pivotal existence in the Navy. Mr. Laxus, I finally found you. Bastiu's urgent voice suddenly sounded. Soon, everyone noticed that on the huge deck of the ship, besides Bastius, there was an unexpected figure. It's a naval hero, Lieutenant General Garp. How could he appear here? Daski's expression changed slightly. Not long ago, she was most looking forward to joining the Navy headquarters, and of course she knew a little about these generals. In particular, Garp, known as a naval hero. It can be said that as long as it is a person who is swimming in this sea, he absolutely knows what this means. Navy hero. Ikulem's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Wei Wei subconsciously. In his eyes, the appearance of Garp was undoubtedly an unexpected change. If Qinyu's identity as the Great Skeleton Demon is revealed now, he may be able to have a chance to escape. However, Wei Wei clearly understood Ikulem's idea, and quickly shook her head to reject it. It can be said that in Alabasta, the people of the Pakistani rock work society are gradually eroding. She and her father, but many times pinned their hopes on the Navy. Unfortunately, disappointed again and again. What's more, if Chinyu said just now, the person hiding behind the scenes of Ba Rock's work club is Chiwu Hai, K Rock Doll, who has the privilege and is recognized by the world government. There is simply no way to overthrow him without sufficient evidence. Once that guy's plan is broken, and there is not enough evidence to make the Navy headquarters act, what awaits them is still the unpunished K Rockdal. There is also endless revenge from Chiwahai. Therefore, the only thing Wei Wei can do at the moment is to temporarily enter the stage of transaction negotiation with Chinyu to avoid unforeseen problems. What's more, once Chinyu's identity was revealed, Wei Wei believed that at this distance, the other party could kill her dozens of times. Chapter 548 _ A brief encounter with Carp. Little devil, accept your life. The shouting sounded suddenly. Boom. Garp took a big step, and the whole person disappeared like a ghost out of thin air. The violent scene changed the expressions of Dusky, Nami and the others. After all, just now Chinyu relied on another identity to erase the Murloc paradise. However, before they could recover, Chinyu's voice had already sounded. You stand back. The simple 4 words were spit out, and the thunderlight bloomed like a tide on Chinyu's body. At the same time, observation Haki moved to ultimate, sweeping the area of a kilometer like a frenzy. Before everyone could react, Chinyu clenched his fingers suddenly, and under the endless thunder, he punched forward. Thunder Dragon's Collapse Fist. Boom. With a punch, the air in front of him, as if being penetrated, created a large amount of air ripples. Garp's figure appeared, and his pupils were filled with thunderlight in front of him. Was no time to think about it, and the moment Armament Haki quickly covered his fist, he punched it without any hesitation. Boom. The dull collision sound resounded suddenly. That feeling was like a thunderbolt from the blue sky, and the splashing thunderlight, like a wild dragon, directly shattered the surrounding reefs and rock formations. The violent waves that were set off made Wei Wei and the others fly out. However, in the face of all this, Chinyu didn't seem to care about it at all. With his hands clasped together suddenly, the thunderlight dormant in his body exploded like a volcano. With a single strike, as long as he can take the slightest advantage, Chinyu has only one motto. Take advantage of your illness to kill you. The jaws of Thunder Dragon. The fists and 10 fingers were suddenly clenched, and at the moment when the endless thunder light burst out, the fists were like the incarnation of Thor's hammer, and they slammed down towards Garp, who had just appeared and was tired of dealing with the attack. Garp, who witnessed this scene, had his turbid old eyes instantly brightened, facing the attack from the force. There was no intention of defending at all, and the 5 fingers of his right hand were suddenly clenched, in a posture of killing 1,000 enemies and self-destructing 800. Towards Chinyu's abdomen, it suddenly smashed out. Boom. 2 dull collision sounds resounded again like thunder. The raging fist wind wave turned into a furious wave and rolled away like a frenzy. 2 figures flew out from the center of the explosion. 5 steps. 10 steps. 15 steps. When Chinyu took the last step, the heavy rock shattered at the place where he landed. It directly affected the radius of 100 meters. On the other hand, Garp also retreated 10 steps, and also smashed the huge reef. Watching this shot, the two of them were torn apart. The nerves of Dusky and the others who were present were tense to ultimate. After all, the person in front of him is Lieutenant General Garp, a legendary existence known as a naval hero. If they are not careful, the fear that awaits them is a certain death. However, as soon as this idea came to mind, a sudden burst of laughter made their expressions stagnate for a while. Haha, you kid, your fighting skills are really consummate, and the high-level armament hockey, at a critical moment, used Liu Ying to offset my punching power. It is indeed the person that the old man likes. Laughed. Armament hockey that was covering his body converged into his body like a tidal wave. The arrogant and domineering aura he had originally dissipated all at once, and after digging his nostrils, he said, "Boy, did you scare you just now?" Facing Garp, who suddenly gave up the idea of fighting, Chin Yu's expression remained the same, and said, "Mr. Garp doesn't have murderous aura, otherwise I wouldn't be warming up just now." Warm up? Dusky and the others couldn't help but startled. Even the people on the warship where Bastius was on were no exception. It was the first time that they had seen a junior, fighting against Lieutenant General Garp, and dared to say such a thing. "You kid, you're really crazy." Cap rolled his eyes and said, still digging out his nostrils, "I heard Bastius say just now that in addition to your physical skills and devil fruit abilities, you also know kendo. Just now, I was planning to force you to use a knife, but I didn't expect that you brat would dare to fight with me. However, this method is a temper to my old man. What do you think about my invitation that day? Why don't you join the Navy headquarters and become a brigadier general? This time, this old man is going back to the East China Sea to dig some talents for the Navy headquarters. I have what I have. There are places on the board. Quote. Don't worry, even that guy Akainu can't stop you. The big deal, let's beat him up secretly." Lieutenant General Garp, who looked at the old and disrespected, said secretly, but did not hide his words at all. The confidants behind him suddenly felt helpless. As a lieutenant general, if he dares to say such a thing, I am afraid that only Garp can do it. Do not. It should be said that I am afraid that even the generals do not have such confidence. No, I don't like it, the rules of the Navy, and the ugly Tianlong people. Chin Yu directly refused. No matter how superior the conditions given by the Navy headquarters, he did not like to be under others. At least, as the strongest in another world, this is not allowed. Haha, I knew you would say something like that. Garp laughed loudly and said, that's it, I see into this kind of thing as a lobbyist. However, you kid, the battle you made just now can be felt across most of the island. When I passed by, the stronghold occupied by the Murloc dragon was directly razed to the ground. It seems that you are hiding. It's really deep, and it's a good choice to have Bastius follow you. Chin Yu had his own thoughts on the existence of Bastius. At least, he is one of the key pawns for Chin Yu to grow his reputation and make the world turbulent. It was for this reason that Chin Yu let Bastius follow him. Mr. Karp, the teacher is also tired. If I knew you would be tossing like this, I wouldn't bring you here. Bastius smiled helplessly. Just now, he was ordered to intercept Lieutenant Colonel Mouse, and at the same time to take over the naval branch. On the way back, I happened to meet Garp returning to the East China Sea to be lazy. After learning that Chin Yu was in Kokoja village, he came directly here. You old boy, you are really blaming me. Garp glared angrily and said, however, it seems that this is a period of time, and the old man did not patrol the East China Sea, not only the evil dragons. Damn guy, there are mobs even in the Navy, when you go back, you must sweep it up. Do you go back to sweep? Bastius was stunned for a moment and said, then Mr. Karp, where are you going now? Where to go? Cap rolled his eyes and said, "Of course, I'm going back to my hometown, seeing my precious grandson, and digging out talents for the Navy headquarters." Chapter 549 Sweep the rubbish to the Navy. Ahem, Lieutenant General Garp. This is the 38th time you have used this excuse to secretly return to the East China Sea. The adjutant standing on the deck coughed dryly. Directly, it caused the whole warship to burst into laughter. They were not surprised by Karp's excuse. However, in the possession of a Navy hero, this status gold medal is there, but there is no way for Sengoku and even the 5 old stars to take Garp. After all, if Roger is the soul of the pirates, then the existence of Garp is the justice that the Navy insists on. Looking at this scene, Chinyu finally understood why Garp was always haunting the East China Sea, and he still couldn't find talents such as Zoro and Sanji. In the face of this talented Donghai, Chinyu decided not to let them be wasted. "Mr. Garp, are you planning to go back to see Luffy?" Chinyu asked. Garp couldn't help but startled and said, "Little devil, you actually know Luffy." For the existence of Luffy, he has always been with the bandit Daiden. Moreover, only a few people know that he has a grandson. "Mr. Garp, do you have a grandson?" Bastiu was stunned in place. "Do not." It should be said that the people on the whole ship were also stunned. Seeing everyone's astonished expressions, Garp poked out his nostrils, showing a natural stunned expression, and said, "It's fine if I haven't said it before. I still can't talk about this kind of thing." Looking at Garp, who seemed to be able to erase everyone's memory with just one sentence, the Navy soldiers present were suddenly speechless. Chinyu was already accustomed to Garp's character design, and hesitantly said, "This is what Ace told me. However, I advise Mr. Garp to take Luffy to the Navy headquarters this time, or else that guy will accidentally slip away and become a pirate. By the way, there are 2 relatively rubbish famous knives here. You can drop by Frostmoon Village and give them to a naval hunter from Roroya Zoro. There is also a sea restaurant with a chef with good legs. There is a good sniper in Zailuobu Village. You can pack everything and take it with you. You will definitely be able to produce generals in the future." The slightly long-sounding voice reverberated between heaven and earth. Looking at Chinyu's delicacy, even Garp couldn't help but froze in place. After a while, Garp couldn't help but say, You kid, wouldn't be from the East China Sea, even these people know so well. Also, don't you need a companion? Why don't you recruit it yourself?" "Me," Chinyu laughed dryly and said, "They're too rubbish, let your Navy train me, and I'll pry the corners." "You kid, you really are a bastard. Sweep the garbage to our Navy." Garp laughed. But he quickly thought of something, and he blew his beard and said, "You stinky boy, the grandson of this old man, is not garbage. You wait and see, the next time we meet, those guys, I will bring all of them." Looking at Garp who was really moving, Chinyu threw the 2 famous knives to Garp with a smile and said, "Thank you." As for the future of the Straw Hats, Chinyu had only planned to hire a navigator. However, after thinking about it, this group of idiots, Lu Kai, Jose Embryo, and a big talker. Without navigators, 90% would not be able to get out of the East China Sea. Since Chinyu has always advertised as a good person and good deeds, he had no choice but to be a good man and cheat him again. What's more, establishing a connection here can also play an indirect role in the turbulence of the sea in the future. It is convenient for Chinyu to find a large key. "Little devil, don't worry, the old man will definitely tie that guy Luffy to the Navy headquarters this time. If you don't listen to my grandfather like Ace, that won't work." "What, the new captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Fire Fist Ace is Mr. Garp's grandson?" "What did you say?" "I didn't say anything just now. What Ace, he's not my grandson." "Mr. Garp, when you lie, can you stop picking your nostrils, and your booger, can you stop flicking it?" Looking at the noisy warship, he turned around and left. Bastiu also threw himself onto another small sailboat and watched them leave. As Karp said, Bastius still needs to stay by Chin Yu's side to study. Karp is also resigned to the willfulness of his younger generation. At the same time, in the naval headquarters, the huge conference room, Sengoku was sitting in the first place with a gloomy face, and slapped the desk suddenly. Damn Garp, at this time, he sneaked back to the East China Sea, and next time I come back, I have to beat him up. Looking at the dignified Marshal Sengoku, who is known as a naval think tank, can be so angry, only his old friend Garp can do it. After more than half a minute, he noticed that Sengoku's anger was almost gone, and the crane on the side took out 2 pieces of information with his backhand and handed them over. Not long ago, Qingzi sent Wald's information. He has escaped from the East China Sea and seems to have been picked up by his former subordinates. The most important thing, the pirate ship that Guy owns has huge ship guns. Huge naval gun. Sengoku's expression suddenly changed, and he quickly opened the information on the table. Looking at the photos on it, it was a ship like a giant island. Among them, the huge ship guns dozens of meters long made his face gradually gloomy. Marshal Sengoku, is there anything wrong with this? A young major general couldn't help but ask. Now that General Qingzi is rushing back from the East China Sea, why don't we join forces and block Walder in the sea? That's a real catch. Blocked in the sea, Akainu said with a gloomy face, facing each other with cold eyes. It seems that these days, the new juniors still have too little understanding of history. A danger. If only then can the great skeleton demon be caught. Looking at Akainu, who brought the matter to the great skeleton demon, the people present instantly knew that Akainu was still feeling aggrieved by the defeat on the Chambord Islands. After all, with the cooperation of the 2 great generals, a young man can escape completely. Under the blockade of the Chambord archipelago, a 3-foot search was carried out, but nothing was found. It gives the impression that the great skeleton demon is like air, disappearing out of thin air without a trace. Akainu, it's all right. Sengoku opened his mouth and changed the subject. Now that the big demon is silent, as long as he doesn't come out for a while, we can also spare our hands and catch the others first. It's also a good countermeasure to concentrate on dealing with the prisoners such as Wald after they have been resolved. Chapter 550-Shichibukai Summoning Order. To Sengoku's countermeasures, and even the crane nodded secretly. Only Akainu, who was full of grievances, was obviously a little impatient. After all, there are rumors flying outside now, which has damaged his title as the most powerful general. Okay, there are many new Navy elites present, but I don't know about the pirates who were imprisoned in the Advanced City prison decades ago. Sengoku took the lead to change the subject. Took out a stack of documents with his backhand and said, "Now, let me tell you about it first." This time, the pirates who escaped from the prison of Advanced City are World Destroyer. 30 years ago, there was a reward of 200 million. The reward amount is now 500 million. Those with the ability of Momo's fruit are best at magnifying the speed, strength, and physique of cannonballs by 100 times. 30 years ago, that guy had the power of fruit, and increased the power of huge cannonballs by 100 times, not only attacking the navy, but even pirates, and even threatened to destroy the Holy Land Mary Joa. Having said that, Sengoku took out the photo of the huge ship he took and said, "I never imagined that the crazy idea that he couldn't experiment with that day was actually completed by his subordinates within 30 years. With the ability to increase 100 times, if it is equipped with a huge ship cannon of dozens of meters, what level of power will it reach? I am afraid that a single blow can destroy an island. If Wald really goes berserk, waiting for the threat of our naval headquarters. Definitely no smaller than the skeleton demon." Quote. As soon as these words fell, the newly promoted admirals suddenly gasped. A huge shell with a diameter of tens of meters, if it is increased by 100 times again. It was so huge that it was impossible to describe it in words. Once it really exploded, the one waiting for them would be sure to die. When it came to this one, they finally understood what the legendary great pirate was. No wonder, even Qingzi, who was a general, was able to escape from the East China Sea by personally chasing him. Okay, since everyone already knows his danger, then we will pursue it next, and we must arrest Wald before he goes crazy. Sengoku said in a deep voice, I want to know, what proposals do you have? As soon as these words fell, everyone's eyes subconsciously turned to the two generals present. Although, the legendary big pirate is a huge military exploit. However, let alone a major general, not even a lieutenant general is an opponent. If there is no general to lead the team, it will be a death sentence. All go, Akainu said suddenly. The violent scene was a bit surprising, even for Kizaru. He said with a crooked mouth, Brother Akainu, I didn't expect you to be so active this time. That little brother, I am too lazy to make excuses. Seeing this scene, Akainu was obviously not surprised. After a cold snort, he reached out and planned to remove the information on the table. Akainu, don't be impulsive, Sengoku said suddenly, causing Akainu's outstretched hand to stop in the air. Faced with all this, Akainu's face sank slightly and said, Marshal Sengoku, if you have anything to say, can you finish it all at once? To deal with an old man who is about to die, I can catch it. The awe-inspiring voice was mixed with an unmistakable taste. Sengoku sighed helplessly, and said, Akainu, I know that you are eager to catch Walder, and you are planning to wash away and count the defeat of the skeleton demon, but I want to tell you that this is not only your personal shame, it's still about the face of the Navy headquarters. So, this time, I don't plan to let you go out alone, and the yellow monkey will also support you. He has the ability to shine fruit, and once Wald falls into the encirclement, with Kizaru, he can't escape at all. Having said that, Sengoku grabbed another document with his backhand and said, also, I have already applied for the Chiwahai recruitment order. Those guys who have used Chiwahai's power for a long time should also contribute. Chiwahai recruitment order. As soon as these words fell, the faces of many people in the field changed drastically. The existence of Shichibukai is a special pirate camp established by the world government in order to deal with pirates. Moreover, every one of the pirates who can become Shichibukai is a famous existence in the sea. Marshal Sengoku, this is too laborious, and those Chiwahai will not agree to it casually. Kizaru said playfully with his mouth crooked. There is also an agreement between their naval headquarters and Shichibukai. However, these agreements, Chiwahai has the right to refuse. Don't worry, this time, the 5 old stars agreed that we will use the forced recruitment regulations. There are still a few people in the Chiwahai. During this time, there is no time to complete the task for the world government, so they must be present. Sengoku said in a deep voice. However, even if they come, they can only be a little deterrent and really make them work hard. This is absolutely impossible. So, at that time, everyone still needs to wake up 12 points. Having said this, Sengoku looked at the crane and said, also, you wait a moment and contact the sand crocodile. That guy has not fulfilled the Chiwahai treaty for a long time. If he doesn't come this time, let him wait for our navy to encircle him. Sengoku, who is rarely domineering, the admirals present all sat up straight. Feeling that the atmosphere suddenly increased, Crane couldn't help but smile and said, don't worry, I have found the whereabouts of Crocodile, he seems to be hiding in Alabasta to become a hero. Pirates become heroes. Sengoku frowned and said, I heard that Alabasta has been dry for years, and that guy ran to be a hero. However, as long as Crocodile promises to come to help out, according to the agreement of Chiwahai, we should not care about him too much, and focus all our energy on dealing with Wald and the Great Skeleton Demon. Following Sengoku, orders, they fell one by one. The big event that shocked the New World was once again detonated by the legendary Big Pirate. Moreover, this incident is undoubtedly related to the skeleton demon who was making a fuss about the Chambord archipelago. 7 days later, a sloop appeared in Alabasta, outside the port of Rapeflower. Looking at the city outline that had become clear after a long absence, Wei Wei, who was standing on the deck, couldn't help clenching the phone bug in her hand. The moment she saw Qin Yu's back, she had a numb shock on her face. "Teacher, I have written down all the 6 types of profound meanings you mentioned. I never thought that the power of the 6 types of profound meanings could be adjusted with the help of paper-painted martial arts." Bastiu held a notepad and looked at Qin Yuman, face sincere. During these 7 days, Qin Yu had not been idle. He dug out the 6 naval styles and the profound meanings of the 6 styles from Bastiu's mouth. Then, use the one-click full-level system to learn them all. The purpose is to further improve their own strength as soon as possible. Chapter 551-New Textbook for Naval Headquarters. However, the only thing that makes people feel regretful is that the 6th-style profound meaning that Bastius understands is far worse than that of Rob Lucci. Moreover, Qin Yu had only demonstrated to Bastiu how to perform the 6 forms, and he was only at the stage of explaining the 6 forms' profound meaning. The most important thing is that the information Bastiu has put forward is really lacking, even if Qin Yu has a wealth of combat experience to support it. It is also difficult to deduce the 6 forms' profound truth in 1 moment and 3 minutes, and perform a one-click full level. However, just relying on Qin Yu's own opinions, and the recent period of time, he taught Bastiu Gao the domineering Chi Sakra's display method, and his attitude of worshipping himself has risen to a new level. After all, Qin Yu has a one-click full-level system, and the knowledge level and experience that Liu Ying has acquired is not comparable to those of the Navy who have explored alone. If you really want to pursue it, I am afraid that even the Navy Recruit Battalion, responsible for recruit training, and the former Admiral of the Navy, Zepha, can't compare with it. Teacher, can you take me back to the Navy headquarters with the idea of drawing a martial body on paper? If you let Teacher Zepha know, he will definitely be very happy. Bastiu couldn't help but suggested Qin Yu's expression. After all, the most taught in the Navy is the basic 6-style display, and the other extended skills are all trained by themselves. Among them, this paper-painted martial arts body is to enhance one's own strength or speed by adjusting the body's chi, and raise one's own strength to a higher level. It can be said that it is to abandon one of the advantages and raise the limit of the other to ultimate. And this concept has not yet appeared in the Navy headquarters. Qin Yu stole it from Rob Lucci, a physique genius who had been hard to come by in hundreds of years. In front of Bastius, a concept was also proposed. Although, this concept seems ethereal. However, the person who can point out the direction is always better than moving forward by feeling the stones in the dark. However, in Bastiu's eyes, Qin Yu proposed the concept of painting a martial body on paper. If you don't get the approval and take it back rashly, I'm afraid something is wrong. Whatever, these are not important things. Qin Yu waved his hand casually. The dignified Lieutenant General Bastius was able to look at this paper-painted martial arts body because Rob Lucci had been hiding in the 7th city of water to perform his mission. How many people can force him to do his best for this CP9 existence, which has been known as the strongest CP9 on Judiciary Island for hundreds of years? What's more, as one of the hard-earned killers, who would openly give it to the Navy headquarters, so that the general public knew that they had this trick. It's not fragrant. Teacher, is it really possible? Why don't I ask you to talk to Mr. Zepha or Mr. Garp on the phone? Maybe it can help the teacher's research go further. Bastiu's eyes instantly became hot. During this period of time, his 6 forms also became more refined under Qin Yu's tempering. Now if he can integrate everything Qin Yu proposed, Bastius believes that he will definitely be able to make further progress as a vice admiral in the Navy. It is also one step away from the position of the general. I don't need it. I only need an opportunity to perfect the 6 forms of profound truth. Chinyu rejected Bastiu's proposal. Garp is the founder of the 6 forms, and Zepha is the communicator. Communicating with them will help Chinyu to find opportunities faster and make the 6 forms profound truthful at one click. However, the system is Chinyu's secret, and he doesn't want to reveal too much. Your Excellency Laxus, the rapeseed port has arrived. Ikulem's voice suddenly sounded. Bastiu also put it away, looking like he was diligent and questioning just now. When he came, he already knew what the deal was from Princess Weiwei's mouth. It is about Chihuahai, secretly occupying Alabasta, a big desert country. That is a big event. However, when he thinks of the detached status of Chihuahai, Bastius, as a vice admiral, also feels powerless. Teacher, I put this note away first, but the students want to ask 1 or 2 questions. The teacher thinks how long it will take to perfect the paper-painted martial arts body in the 6 forms profound truth. Bastiu cherished the note in his hand. Notepad, wrapped in waterproof butter paper. However, when he thought that following Chinyu's side for a while, he would be able to obtain such precious information. Although it is only a concept, the feasibility is very high, and Bastius can't wait to send these materials back to the Navy headquarters for credit. It is also a good way to make up for the mistakes made on the Chambord Islands not long ago, and at the same time enhance the overall combat power of the naval headquarters. After all, Chinyu's theoretical knowledge summarized in the 1 key full-level system is rich and complete. It is more complete and easy to understand than the set of the naval boot camp. Looking at Bastiu, who was so anxious, Chinyu rolled his eyes helplessly and said, "It may be an instant, or it may be 10 days and 8 days, depending on luck." For a moment. 10 days and 8 days. Bastius was stunned for a moment, but his eyes became more and more frantic. This is the bottom line. Even Mr. Garp, a naval hero, spent most of his life creating the 6 forms. Chinyu dared to say that in 10 days and 8 days, he could complete the 6-style profound meaning paper painting and perfect his martial body, which was undoubtedly beyond expectations. Seeing Bastiu, who had almost changed from an uncle to a fanboy, Chinyu rolled his eyes helplessly and looked towards the rapeseed port. It can be said that he is willing to send the 6 types of profound meanings and other information summarized in the system to the Navy headquarters. That is also related to shocking the world and causing the sea to shake. Everything is for the big password. And Bastius will be one of the most important pieces. He wants to use the identity of Laxus to become the new textbook of the Navy headquarters. Your Excellency Laxus, the ship is about to dock. Vivi reminded. This rapeseed port is one of our largest commodity ports in Alabasta. However, due to the drought, other port oases and freshwater resources have decreased, resulting in only rapeseed remaining in the Alabasta port. However, according to my calculations, if the dry weather continues, the rapeseed port will also be deserted, and at that time, the channel connecting Alabasta to the outside world will be completely cut off. Speaking of this, Wei Wei's face became more lonely. Thinking back to a few years ago, they were Alabasta. Looking at this world, they were also the only big country. Not at all comparable to the island nations of Dressrosa. Princess Wei Wei, don't worry, if you find out that this matter is really related to Chihuahai, our naval headquarters will definitely attack him. Bastius couldn't help but comforted him. However, this remark, apart from the Byakugan that attracted Wei Wei, did not affirm the Navy headquarters. Chapter 552 arrive in Alabasta. Looking at Wei Wei who looked disgusted, Bastius couldn't help but be silent. After all, let alone him, even the Navy headquarters needs to go through the process in the face of Kei Rochdal who is Shichibukai. Without substantive evidence, it is impossible to arbitrarily attack Chihuahai. However, this process of collecting evidence is enough to make K. Rockdale take revenge 10,000 times. Under the leadership of Wei Wei, Qin Yu and his party landed on the pier. However, according to Wei Wei, it was the only remaining port in Alabasta, but it was very quiet, and there were not many merchant ships, not to mention the handover person that Wei Wei said. "Princess, didn't you contact Belle to meet him here? Where is he?" Ekolem couldn't help but change his expression when he saw this scene. He was skeptical about trading with Qin Yu. But now this situation has undoubtedly tightened his nerves. After all, he and Princess Wei Wei had been away from Alabasta for more than half a year. Come back suddenly now, let alone Belle, I'm afraid even the king can't wait to fly to meet him. Right now, the pier is empty, which is not good news for them. Your Excellency Laxus, Wei Wei looked at Qin Yu subconsciously. During this period of time, the more she got to know Qin Yu, the more she understood that some things that were difficult in front of her were nothing when they came to Qin Yu. The town over there, Qin Yu frowned and looked at the town bordering the port. However, before Qin Yu could finish speaking, Wei Wei and Ekolem rushed out on the quick-run duck. Bastiu, who was watching this scene, was about to say something, but the two had already left. Let's go take a look too, Qin Yu said, and picked up Nami beside him. The violent scene made Nami stunned for a moment, and then her cheeks instantly turned to Yuhi, and she said anxiously, "You, what are you doing? There are so many people here. What are you doing?" Qin Yu rolled his eyes, and Nami, who was clearly thinking about it, said, "Of course I will take you on the road, or do you think I can keep up with our speed, or let Basti hold you? On the way. Let Bastius hold me." Nami was stunned for a moment, and after seeing Bastiu's shabby appearance, she obediently closed her mouth and stayed in Qin Yu's arms. In this scene, Dasichi, who was beside him, became a fan of Yuhi's pretty face. At the same time, in a small town several kilometers away from the port, the strong wind was not blowing a large swath of sand. A group of soldiers in the uniforms of the royal guards were being surrounded by a group of pirates. And the man leading the pirates was a spiky-haired man wearing a mud-colored long gown and sunglasses. As for standing beside him, it was a woman who was holding an umbrella, wearing a headscarf, and wearing a little revealing clothes. If Wei Wei was present, she would definitely be able to recognize at a glance that these two were senior officials of the Baroque Works. Mr. Point 5 and Miss Valentine's Day. Hee, I didn't expect to meet Belle, the patron saint of Alabasta here. Originally, you were huddled in Albana, and it was difficult for me to hunt you, but you came here to Rapeseed, but I couldn't let you go out alive. Mr. 5 said with a playful smile, with Kabuto in his trousers. You are in the black market, and the head on the item is worth 8 million Baileys. The sudden interception made Belle's expression turn blue. He never thought that the pirates in front of him would dare to attack them so blatantly in Alabasta. However, this can't blame Belle for underestimating the enemy. Due to the drought, during this period of time, the rebel army attacked the Rapeseed port many times, and the strength of the guards was weakened. Rock Works, who often haunt here, disguised as pirates. Moreover, in the face of Princess Wei Wei, who has been missing for a long time, Belle is also anxious to respond. Thinking of this, Belle's expression sank, and he shouted in a hurry, "Pirates, this is the land of Alabasta, we are the royal capital guards, if you don't retreat, it will be regarded as an enemy of us Alabasta." An enemy of you Alabasta? Mr. 5 was stunned at first, then burst into laughter and said, "A sick cat that even the rebel army has not suppressed, dare to tell such a big joke. Today, we are not leaving, you are again, how can we do anything to us?" Quote. Of course, if you give me the head on your neck yourself, I might spare you. The playful voice reverberated in the wind and sand. The guards became obviously furious. Once upon a time, the dignified country of Alabasta would make a group of pirates ridicule. For a time, everyone's eyes fell on Belle. Feeling the change in the atmosphere in the field, and the appointed time, it is getting closer and closer. Bell's face sank, and he made a gesture directly. Go. Drinking like thunder, Bell, one of the patron saints of Alabasta, rushed out first. With the ability of Devil Fruit, his strength and speed undoubtedly overwhelm everyone. Like a sharp arrow, it appeared first in front of MR5. With his right hand like lightning, he grabbed the saber around his waist and suddenly unsheathed it the next moment. In his eyes, the abominable pirate in front of him was too overbearing, ignoring his speed. As long as his sword is unsheathed, he will be able to instantly defeat this arrogant person. Uncle Bell, leave him quickly. The hurried shouting sounded suddenly. Bell was stunned for a moment, but before he could react, the man in front of him had already laughed playfully. I caught you. Mr. Five grabbed Bell's shoulders, and the next moment, a wave of fiery air surged out of him. Boom. A low explosion sounded like thunder. The powerful air waves rolled back like a frenzy. The guards and some temporarily organized pirates were blown away one after another. The expressions of Vivi and Ikaram, who arrived in a hurry, changed drastically. After the sandstorm and the blast of the explosion dissipated, the MR5 with a nonchalant face walked out slowly carrying Bell, who was covered in black smoke. Yo, isn't this MR11? You were called Uncle Bell just now. It seems that your identity is not simple. Mr. Five looked at Vivi and Ikalem playfully. Or, you're Princess Vivi who disappeared not long ago in Alabasta. The small voice was spit out, and at this moment, it was like a magic sound, echoing in the wind and sand, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Vivi and Ikarem's expressions suddenly changed. Before they could react, a coquettish shout suddenly sounded in the sky. Chapter 553 _ Take advantage of strength. Light and fluttering fruit 5,000 catties. The tender voice suddenly sounded, instantly tense the nerves of Vivi and Ikalem. They had just joined the Ba Rock Work Club, but they had also performed tasks together with the two of them. It is very clear what fruit ability they have. Before I could think about it, I hurriedly looked up at the sky, and a delicate figure, like a meteorite, fell from the sky. Wei Wei, who witnessed this scene, subconsciously wanted to withdraw and retreat. However, as soon as she moved, she found that there were a lot of miniature bombs made by MR5 around. Miss Valentine, who fell from the sky, was obviously aimed at her. No matter how small she dodged, she would be hit. Witnessing this scene, Bell, who was originally injured, changed his face and shouted anxiously, Princess, I'm here to save you now. Princess. Hearing this, MR5 couldn't help but startled, and then he laughed horribly. In his eyes, being able to capture the Princess of Alabasta is simply an effortless effort. Thinking of this, MR5 hurriedly looked at Miss Valentine's Day, which was falling rapidly from the sky. However, the first scene that caught his eye made his pupils shrink suddenly. A ghostly figure, one step ahead, appeared on Wei Wei's side, and lifted his right hand towards the sky like lightning. The violent scene made Miss Valentine's Day stunned for a moment, and then she laughed playfully. An arrogant person who wants to be a hero to save the beauty in front of this lady, then let me be seriously injured. Boom. Voice fell. Miss Valentine, like a heavy weight, came into a close contact with Chin Yu's right hand. The round and delicate buttocks were directly touched by Chin Yu's 5-clawed golden dragon. As for the so-called 5,000 Jin giant force, it fell on Chin Yu's body, and even the rock floor under his feet did not collapse. This meant that the so-called giant impact was completely offset by Chin Yu himself. Mr. 5 Feet's expression changed drastically. He didn't have time to think about it, and shouted in a hurry, Valentine's Day, hurry up and retreat. Miss Valentine, who has been working with Mr. 5 for a long time. After hearing this, she didn't have time to think about it, and quickly reduced her weight to a pound. However, before she could withdraw and retreat, the playful laughter fell into her ears. "I'm sorry, but I won't let them escape." Chinyu gave a teasing smile, and with a little force, he directly clasped his buttocks with his 5 fingers. Miss Valentine's Day just felt a different kind of shock and sour feeling, and the whole body appeared a little sour. Before she could react, a crackling thunder sounded. There was a flower in front of her, who was directly pulled by Chinyu and Wei Wei, like a teleportation, appearing more than 10 meters away. The next moment, the bombs scattered all around exploded. Bang bang bang. What a great speed. Belle's pupils shrank suddenly. In his eyes, he is also the patron saint of Alabasta. He is also an animal-type devil fruit ability expert who is good at speed. However, in the face of the momentary lateral movement just now, even Chinyu's movements could not be clearly seen. Do not. It should be said that Belle saw clearly, that claw in the dark was a solid one. "Mr. Laxus, thank you very much for saving me." Wei Wei came back to her senses and looked a little surprised when Chinyu appeared suddenly. "Hee, don't forget, before the transaction is completed, you are the target of my transaction, of course I won't let you get hurt easily." Chinyu laughed dryly, and looked up at Miss Valentine, who seemed to be enjoying his mind wandering. Miss Valentine, who was immersed in sourness, was quickly pulled back. Feeling the gazes from all around, Miss Valentine's cheeks slammed down and shouted in a hurry, "Hurry up and let go of your hand, or I will crush you to death." Release. Chinyu cast a playful look at Miss Valentine's Day and said, "If you take the initiative to deliver things, there is a reason to let go. You can kill me, and I can go out of my way. This is called taking advantage of each other's abilities." You. Miss Valentine's Day, suddenly angry. Do not. It should be said that even Princess Wei Wei, as well as the cheeks of Dusky and Nami, couldn't help but blush. Yuhi. This is taking advantage of them, and they have seen a lot of people, but taking advantage of them can take advantage of people who are so righteous. It was the first time they saw it. Feeling, on top of the perfect circle, the warm big hand that was tightly clasped, Miss Valentine's pretty face turned to Yuhi, bit Kiba and shouted, "Okay, very good, if you don't let go, then blame yourself for being too lustful, smash me into meat-chan." Quote. 10,000 pounds of gravity. Zhao drink like thunder, and there is awe-inspiring murder between the lines. However, the momentum is very full, and the row is also very large. However, in the face of Chinyu's holding up brother-like gesture, the gesture of the 5-clawed golden dragon was almost as stable. In the face of the so-called 10,000 Jin giant force, it is simply motionless. Is this your full strength? Chinyu returned to his usual arrogant attitude as a Laxus character. The moment Huo Ran raised his head, this change of demeanor made Miss Valentine's Day startled and nodded subconsciously. The next moment, the words that fell in her ears shook her nerves. The riot should be over, maddening the raging waves. Boom. The violent thunder light exploded instantly in Chinyu's body. The crackling razor swam off, heading straight for Miss Valentine's Day. What? Miss Valentine's Day just had time to let out a miserable cry. The whole person was overwhelmed by lightning. Looking at Chinyu, who suddenly changed his posture and solved Miss Valentine's Day with ease. That breezy and light-hearted attitude was basically interpreting the sarcastic remark just now. Take advantage of your strength. When I think of it, Princess Wei Wei is with this kind of bully, in case there is a hard reason. That would probably be helpless. I'm sorry, she's a girl, and I happen to be a gentleman, so I wasted some time to solve it. Chinyu threw the unconscious Miss Valentine's Day aside. His eyes turned in vain and locked on MR5. Seeing this scene, MR5 suddenly woke up, and subconsciously took a half step back. For Miss S. Valentine's Day method, it seemed a little monotonous. But to be able to stand in the same place as if nothing had happened under the gravity of 10,000 pounds, the person in front of him is definitely not simple. Thinking of this, Mr. 5 Feet's left hand, which was hidden in the kabuto pants, suddenly turned out. Before everyone could react, they threw it out. The golden yellow fine sand turned into a large bomb at the moment it escaped from Mr. 5 Feet's hands, shrouding Chin-yu head-on. Bastille, who witnessed this scene, changed his expression and shouted anxiously, "Mr. Laxus, I'll help you." However, before he could take action, Chin-yu stepped forward to face the bombs in the sky. The scene that fell in Bastius's eyes made his pupils shrink suddenly. Chapter 554 Hello Nico Robin. Puff puff. A series of air-breaking sounds echoed suddenly. One after another, the shadows of dark bombs rushed towards Chin-yu. However, in the face of all this, Chin-yu not only did not move his steps to dodge a lot. On the contrary, he closed his eyes in full view of the crowd, completely turning a blind eye to the incoming attack. Looking at this inexplicable scene, the nerves of the people present were suddenly tense. However, before they could react, Chin-yu's whole person, like a catkin, swayed with the wind. The miniature bombs that came from the sky were just approaching Chin-yu's body every time. The body that was close to 2 meters like an iron tower changed at an incredible angle. It felt like a slippery piece of paper. However, this is just the beginning. When the sky bomb swept across Chin-yu's body, Chin-yu's muscular body suddenly contracted. The whole person gives the feeling that it is like a thin circle. Before everyone could react, he took a step forward before the bomb detonated and disappeared out of thin air. The violent scene gave people the illusion that their thinking could not keep up. Mr. 5 just felt a flower in front of his eyes, and a dark shadow filled his eyes. The speed was so fast that his nerve strings were tense to ultimate. Before he had time to think about it, he roared in anger. "Boy, you dare to approach me and blow me up." Boom. As a bomber, MR5 can act as a bomb all over his body, even his booger is no exception, detonating in an instant. Bell, who had the ability of an animal-type devil fruit just now, was also directly affected by the explosion when he approached him because of his carelessness. It can be said that MR5 is now holding it, and this fatal blow will severely damage Chin-yu. Boom. The sound of successive explosions resounded like thunder. Under the violent wind waves, the rock formations and the ground beneath the feet also collapsed, and large pieces of gravel were swept down, setting off a wave of sand. It can be said that in the moment just now, MR5 caused dozens of fixed-point detonations. After more than half a minute, the sound of the explosion gradually dissipated. Looking at the battlefield that had already changed beyond recognition, a smile appeared on Mr. 5 Feet's face. However, just as the smile appeared, a stout, giant bear-like hand, covered with pitch-black ink-like metallic color, protruded directly from the sand and dust in the sky. In front of everyone's eyes, it was buckled on his shoulder, and the words that fell in his ear shook his nerves. "I'm sorry, I caught you." The indifferent voice was mixed with a hint of arrogance. Before MR5 could react, another big hand stuck out, like a heavy hammer, and hit him in the abdomen. Boom. The dull thunder-like collision sound resounded suddenly. Under the venting of huge strength, Mr. 5 Feet's whole body, like a cannonball, flew upside down. It finally hit a rocky hill dozens of meters away. The violent scene made Bell, who had just calmed down, stunned. When he saw clearly, Chin-yu, who walked out in the form of a giant bear more than 2 meters tall, in the sand and dust, and Armament Hockey, who was covered in darkness, made his pupils shrink even more. What just now was the use of two-color domineering, and the paper-painted martial arts body that controls the speed and power transformation. "Teacher, he succeeded." Bastille was startled for a while, and then he exclaimed. Unable to bear, she rubbed her eyes. In his eyes, just a moment ago, Chin-yu kept saying that it would take 10 days and 8 days. But now, as soon as he touches the battle, he uses the 3 perfectly in the battle. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe this is true? Is this the helper that the princess brought back? Belle couldn't help muttering. In the phone bug, Belle and Wei Wei had exchanges. However, it was only mentioned briefly that the suspected mastermind behind the Baroque works has been found. And who, secretly, was using dancing powder to exacerbate the drought in Alabasta, which led to frequent civil unrest. But I didn't expect that the help Wei Wei brought back could easily defeat the senior cadres of Baroque works. Teacher, what should we do now? Bastiu quickened his pace after tying up Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine's Day and came to Chin-yu's side. As for those pirates who were originally gathered by Mr. 5, they had already seen that the momentum was not right and fled directly. You are the Navy, and the arrest of Chihuahua Crocodile in the future will require evidence of his use of dancing fans, so I hope you will investigate this aspect alone. Chin-yu said lightly. In front of Bastius, he was using the identity of Laxus. Facing the next action, it is not very convenient. Therefore, it is the best way to spread Bastius. Evidence of a dance fan. Bastiu couldn't help but nodded, and immediately nodded in agreement. The teacher is right, the identity of Chihuahua is also a special existence in our Navy. Unless it is a last resort, the world government will never issue an arrest until there is no evidence of a crime. Order. So, to arrest Crocodile, I will gather evidence as soon as possible. However, teacher, your paper-painted martial arts body just now is really powerful. It can not only compress the muscles, increase the speed and explosive power, but also increase the power of the attack to the ultimate by enhancing the strength of the muscles. I can take this matter, tell the headquarters. Seeing Bastiu, who suddenly turned into a little fanboy, Chin-yu nodded helplessly. Now, as long as Bastiu is quickly thrown away, let alone send the paper-painted martial arts body out. Even if Bastiu was packed and sent away, he wouldn't mind. Thank you teacher, I will definitely report the teacher's identity as the creator of the paper-painted martial arts body. Bastiu repeated it. Finally, under everyone's attention, he turned and left. Seeing this scene, Chin-yu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. However, just as the breath was spit out, a rush of calls from the phone worm resounded. The eyes of everyone in the field turned in vain and landed on the phone bug that rolled from Mr. 5 and fell to the ground. Mosamoxie, I'm Miss All Sunday. A cold voice suddenly sounded. In an instant, the faces of Vivi and Ecolem changed drastically, and they quickly lowered their voices and said, This is the voice of the Vice President. When the President doesn't show up, she is in charge of the affairs of the Baroque Work Club. For Vivi and Ecolem, who used to be members of Baroque's Work Club, the existence of this whole Sunday is like a lingering nightmare. However, watching Chin-yu bend over and pick up the phone bug, his nerve strings tightened, and he was eager to see how Chin-yu answered. Hello, Nico Robin. Chapter 555_Shichibu Heike Rock Doll. Hello, Nico Robin. The light voice seemed to be infused with a magic voice at this moment, directly hitting the depths of Nico Robin's soul through the phone bug. Boom. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground came without warning. That feeling was simply shocked by Chin-yu's words. Nicole Robin. Princess Vivi and Ikaram couldn't help but froze in place. For a long time, Miss, the acting president of Pakistan Rock Works, gave them the feeling that Gao Leng said that he was calm and calm. Is even a strange woman who puts Mr. One and other senior cadres over her head. However, now, because of Chin-yu's greeting, she was so shocked. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe that all this is true? Who the hell are you? I don't know what Nicole Robin is. I'm Baroque Works, the acting president of Miss All Sunday. The hurried voices lost the coldness they had just now. Facing Chin Yu's sudden address, it undoubtedly disrupted her posture. Hearing this, Chin Yu said with a playful smile, "If you say that you are not Nico Robin, then you are not. As for me being Prince Mr. Prince." Nico Robin was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously, she searched for the member information of the Baroque Work Club in her mind. However, he soon woke up, and the people who could be named Mr. were the senior cadres in the Baroque Works. And these people are unique, and the number is very rare. There is no such person as Mr. Prince at all. However, before Nico Robin could ask further questions, the phone worm had already heard a busy tone. Looking at this scene, Nico Robin couldn't help but froze in place. That feeling is like hitting the cotton with a box, making people angry and have nowhere to scatter. Nicole Robin, what happened to make your dignified son of sin show such an expression? Rain Banquet, as the stronghold of the Sand Crocodile Rock Doll, is also the headquarters of the Baroque Work Club. Nico Robin has always been hiding here, dealing with various things for the Sand Crocodile Rock Dale. It can be said that before completely taking Alabasta as his own, K. Rockdar will not reveal his own Kiba in the hero's mask. At the same time, it will not be related to the Baroque Work Society. Otherwise, once the matter is exposed, the work of the Baroque Work Society will be active in Alabasta. It will become the Navy headquarters, and even the world government's handle against him. Rockdale, who suddenly pushed in the door, Nico Robin regained his senses and said with a livid face, "I contacted MR5 just now and found that he was killed by someone who called himself Prince Mr. Call my name. Mr. Prince. Call you by your first name." K. Rockdar's expression turned gloomy and said, "Did you find any information? Or, there are some foreign and unfamiliar faces in Alabasta recently, as well as our Pakistan Rock Work Society, have you provoked anyone?" In K. Rockdar's eyes, he chose Alabasta as his target precisely because it existed in the first half of the Great Channel. This can avoid encountering those monsters in the New World. At the same time, if you can get it, the secret of Hades hidden in Alabasta. For K. Rockdale, it was the key to returning to the New World for revenge. Shaked, "Not yet." Nicole Robin shook her head. However, he quickly remembered something and said, "It's just that something happened in Rogue Town not long ago. Mr. 3, during the mission, I once invited a newcomer named Laxus. I heard that in addition to defeating the Navy Colonel and Smoke Small, he also briefly fought with the General Chingzi, and he did not fall behind. Quote, it's just that, according to the information, Mr. 3 was defeated, and was captured by Chingzi and Smoke Smoker, and the two Miss 11 who were on the mission with him also disappeared." The slightly long-sounding voice echoed in the conference room, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. "The kid who played against Chingzi." Rockdale frowned, picked up the information on the table, and after looking at it for a while, he snorted disdainfully, and said, "It turned out that the Navy was trying to recruit him. I thought he would really be able to get along with Chingzi. That monster goes head to head. As for the strength of the general, it is known as the existence of the highest combat power in the naval headquarters, and even a rebellious existence like Rockdale has to admit it. You don't think you need to pay attention to him?" Nico Robin looked at K. Rockdale and asked eagerly. "Right now, it is implicated, and the reason why someone broke her identity." Thinking of those days of escape, for Nicole Robin, it was a nightmare. Especially in Chingzi's hands, she walked past the gate of hell over and over again. HMPH, a mere rookie, if I still need to take the time to deal with it, then my identity as Chihuahua will be lost. K. Rockdale snorted coldly. However, if he dares to set foot, Alabasta, I will turn him into a man with my own hands and hang it on the gate of the rain feast. The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the conference room, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Looking at the confident rock doll, Nico Robin fell into silence all of a sudden. Immediately, he took out another stack of information with his backhand, and said, "This is the Chihuahua recruitment order. The Navy headquarters asks you to carry out the task of encircling and suppressing Wald. Are you planning to set off to encircle Wald?" Rockdale's expression sank, and he said, "That's a lunatic. I didn't expect him to be released. I heard that this time the prison escape was led by the skeleton demon. Later, after the chaos in the Chambord Islands, it disappeared. Now the reward is 1 billion Bailey." Nico Robin said in a deep voice. It can be said that the big event that happened not long ago, as long as people who are not blocked by the news, can clearly know how crazy the situation is. HMPH, what a reward of 1 billion, isn't it just killing 2 Tianlong people and running away from a Kainu and Kayabu at the same time? K. Rockdale snorted disdainfully. "Return to the Navy headquarters, which I refuse to execute on this call. I don't believe that without me, they will not be able to solve the old age of Wald. People of the old age should be like Whitebeard and die of illness sooner or later. If they don't want to, they will send some money over. Now that the plan is at a critical moment, I don't want to let it go." After dropping those words, Crockdale turned around and left the conference room, leaving Nicole Robin alone. After all, after many days, the task of acting as a hero will continue. Chapter 556 The Savior of Alabasta. Watching Rockdale turn and leave, Nico Robin's face suddenly sank. She fled for more than 10 years, and in the end, she was the only person in this world who could understand the text of history except the world government. Therefore, it was attracted by K. Rockdale, and finally hit it off and became the so-called cooperative partner directly to run this Baroque work club. Right now, someone broke her identity as soon as she opened her mouth, which really made her feel uneasy. She didn't want to go back to the days when she was in a hurry to escape. It was a nightmare for her. By the way, Nico Robin, don't think about running away. Don't forget, you can get rid of the Navy headquarters and the pursuit of the world government. That is because you have the blessing of my identity as Chihuahua. Once you leave me, you only will be a bereaved dog. Quote. K. Rockdale, who had just walked out of the gate, paused for a while, looked back at Nico Robin, and said warningly. After all, Nico Robin is the key to his return to the New World to get Pluto. Once, even the historical text can't be seen through, it will be a fatal blow to his plan. K. Rockdale, who finally disappeared from sight after leaving those words. After being silent for a while, Nico Robin still called the phone bug. She needs to make perfect preparations in order to find out the origin of this person who revealed her identity in one sentence. 3 days later, hundreds of kilometers away from the capital of Al Napa, Juba, known as the Oasis of Alabasta level. Thousands of city guards riding fast-running ducks rushed forward. Of Alabasta, Neferutali Cobra. He is the 12th king of the Kingdom of Alabasta and the father of Vivi, but over the years, he has been framed and sniped by K. Rockdale, which has led to the loss of the trust of his people. In the face of the country's situation of internal and external troubles, as the only beloved daughter, Wei Wei even left a message saying that she had left the kingdom's blessing and went to find the mastermind behind the dance fans, and there was no news at all. Although in private, Cobra secretly sent many people to look for it, but unfortunately the sea is too big, and the domestic rebel army, because of the drought and dancing fans, is also growing day by day. Coupled with a Shichibu Heike Rockdale, behind the scenes, there is no way to stop the rebellion. According to his calculations, there have been rebellions in 40% of the cities in Alabasta. It is only a matter of time before the rebellion spreads across the country if this situation continues. Once they reach the point where they cannot be contained, the only thing they can do is to abandon cities other than Albana and stick to several major ports and inland areas. However, just as Cobra was undecided, the information that Vivi brought back surprised Cobra. The Chihuahua is in chaos, and the rescue has been sent." This sentence made Cobra feel unbelievable. "Your Majesty, if we go further, we will reach the border of Juba. At that time, I am afraid that the rebel army stationed here will find it." Followed behind Cobra, as one of the two patron saints of Alabasta the Jackal Yaka, looking forward with a solemn face, Juba, who has been completely desertified. Once upon a time, this was the largest oasis gathering place in Alabasta. If it weren't for the dance fan incident, snatch the rain that belongs here. This is definitely the Emerald Pearl on the map. "I know," Cobra replied with a hint of reminiscence on his face. "It's just that in Vivi's communication, she asked us to arrive at Yuba before 12 o'clock. She said that there is a way to do it first. The civil unrest is lifted. Quote, if it can be done, it would be the best thing for us. As the lord of a country, no one likes watching his own country's civil turmoil and even cannibalism." Hearing these words, Gaka looked a little more melancholy, and said, since His Majesty the King has made up his mind, Gaka did not persuade him too much. The only thing he can do is to stay by His Majesty's side and take good defense. Also, I would like to see what Her Royal Highness said about the drought and civil strife in Alabasta. When these words fell, there was a hint of hope on many faces. After all, they are also tired of this civil unrest. It's just that this idea just sprouted in their minds, and before they could react in the next moment, there was a large sound of horse hooves all around. The desert rising from the dust, the wolf smoke rising in all directions, that scene gave the impression that it was an ambush at all. "This is an ambush." Gaka's expression suddenly changed drastically, and he exclaimed anxiously, "Hurry up and protect His Majesty the King to break through, and the rest will fight with me." The voice fell, and the entire phalanx instantly moved. It can be said that, as a city guard, it is this time that they left the capital and rushed to Juba at all costs. Every soldier that he personally selected is trustworthy. At the same time, they are also convinced that Cobra, the King of Alabasta, will never do such a thing that endangers the people. However, they obviously underestimated Juba, who was the place where the rebel army was stationed. In the case of pulling one and moving the whole body, the figure of the rebel army is full of all directions. In the scene of entering the goal, the number is not clear. "Your Majesty, we are surrounded, let me personally lead the team to protect His Majesty to break through the encirclement, and the others will stay behind, perhaps this time and before, someone imitating His Royal Highness the Princess, deliberately let His Majesty come to be trapped, and the killing game." Gaka's expression changed suddenly. He is a devil fruit power user. However, with his strength, he is simply invincible with two fists, facing tens of thousands of rebel troops. Not to mention a deadly battle, even breaking through is harder than reaching the sky. If Bell was there, he might be able to use his flying ability to save Cobra. But now looking at the gradually besieged rebel army, this scene is probably a surefire situation. "Gaka, stop and let me go out. I believe that Vivi can bring back the savior who rescued Alabasta. As a king, I have to face these former citizens even more," Cobra said solemnly. As soon as these words fell, Gaka's expression changed dramatically, and he was about to persuade one or two. However, he had already seen Cobra, who shook his head and refused. Seeing that Cobra, who was the king, had made up his mind, after Gaka hesitated for a while, he signaled the surrounding defenders to make way, and at the same time took out the broadcast phone and handed it over. In the face of this mortal situation, the only way to ease the situation is to gain their trust. Then, wait for Princess Vivi to say that the savior of Alabasta will come. Chapter 557. A dragon descends from the sky. The huge encirclement was formed above the desert. With the two armies facing each other at a distance, there is an inexplicable feeling of depression that arises from the heart, shrouding the entire desert. Whether it was the city guards or the rebel army with inferior equipment, all of a sudden his expression became very cautious. It can be said that no one is willing to start a war until they are forced to. As the city guards separated from it, everyone's nerves were stirred, and their eyes turned and locked on him. Feeling this gaze, Cobra secretly took a deep breath. He knew it clearly. If this matter is not handled properly, it will be a disaster waiting for him. It was also the last infighting in the kingdom he wanted to see. Everyone, I am Cobra, King of Alabasta. This time, I'm not here to fight you, but to solve the civil strife in Alabasta and find out who is behind the scourge of the kingdom. At the same time, Vivi is also in Alabasta. Also, please come to the rescue of our country, so I hope that any of you will come out and talk to me face to face and get things done. Cobra clenched the phone bug in his hand and said in a deep voice. At the same time, his eyes swept across the rebel army, intending to find the leader hidden behind the scenes. Don't look for it, I'm here, King Cobra. An indifferent voice came from the rebel army. Soon, you can see a teenager in a homeless costume squeezed out of the crowd. Seeing this unfamiliar figure in front of him, Cobra couldn't help but be startled. Are you Kosha? I still have a little impression of this Kosha, who followed his father, went in and out of Albana, and then came to Yuba to develop. However, Cobra never imagined that this inconspicuous young man was actually the leader of the rebel army. Yes, I'm Kosha. Originally, I planned to kill you, but for the sake of your mention of Wei Wei, I'll give you a chance to speak. Kosha said in a deep voice. We actually don't believe what you just said about the mastermind behind the scenes. After all, many people have seen with their own eyes that you direct people to use dancing powder to capture rainwater in other places, and shoot refugees who oppose you. We have 100 reasons to kill you, so to speak. The slightly long-sounding voice echoed in the desert for a long time and could not be dissipated. Gaka heard the words, his face sank, and he was about to say something, but was stopped by Cobra's probe. Kosha, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak, but this time it was Vivi who contacted me and asked me to come to Yuba, tell Alabasta, and found a savior, so I don't know too much. I hope you let us wait for her to appear. Cobra met Kosha's gaze and said in a deep voice. Wait. However, as soon as these words fell, it immediately caused the opposite effect. Gloomy face, Kosha said, King Cobra, are you kidding us? Let us wait here. Do you think we will be stupid enough to wait for your army to arrive, and then be wiped out by you? I'll give you 10 seconds now. If you can't give a sufficient reason, even if my father pleads with you, I will cut off your head and hang it on the Tower of Juba. Doto. Hearing this, Cobra couldn't help but be startled. He looked at the skinny old man who was stopped behind Kosha by everyone, with a hint of guilt on his face. After all, that day he entrusted Dodo to develop Juba. It was also because of him that this Alabasta oasis was directly destroyed. Facing the tearful old man in front of him, Cobra shook his head and said, I really don't know, and I don't have the heart to fight to the death with everyone. If you really want my head, then you will wait for Vivi's. Come, then you can come and get it. Quote. As soon as these words fell, the field immediately became restless. Your Majesty, please don't mess around. If Her Royal Highness the Princess comes back and can't see you safe and sound, you will definitely blame yourself. Gaka was the first to lose his temper and persuaded in a hurry. Captain Gaka is right. Your Majesty the King, you must protect yourself. We will do our best to protect you. We will all swear to protect His Majesty the King. The scene suddenly boiled, and all the city guards suddenly clenched the weapons in the book. Facing this violent scene, the atmosphere in the field was undoubtedly pushed and became tense. All eyes turned and locked on Kosha's body. It can be said that as long as he gives an order now, the war will be triggered. Kosha, listen to me, believe in His Majesty the King once, or I will kill myself in front of you. Dodo suddenly rushed out of the crowd. Looking at the dazzling sharp blade in his hand, Kosha's expression suddenly changed. Turning his eyes subconsciously, he looked at Cobra and said, "Cobra, for my father's sake, I'll wait another 10 minutes. If Princess Wei Wei doesn't show up, then we'll just blame us for being rude. By the way, I forgot to tell you that along the way, there are all the eyeliners of our rebel army, so we can close the net so accurately and besiege you here. As for why I'm so sure, this is your lie, because the eyeliner along the way has no information about witnessing Princess Wei Wei at all. Unless she comes flying, Buddha can't escape from my control at all. What's more, I, Kosha, have been completely disappointed with your royal army. No one can solve the problem of Alabasta except me." The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the huge desert. It made Gaka and other city guards face ashen. However, before they could react, a huge black shadow, with inexplicable oppressive power, projected down from the sky. Roar! The sound of the dragon's roar exploded like thunder. The hurricane, which was set off without warning, swept down like a frenzy. When a large piece of yellow sand is rolled up, it gives people an illusion like flying sand and moving stones. Facing this violent scene, the people present, let alone Cobra, even Kosha, who was full of arrogance just a moment ago, couldn't help but look up into the sky. However, the sight of the behemoth caused their pupils to shrink suddenly, and their eye sockets almost split. Some people couldn't help but exclaimed, "Yes, it's a dragon. No, it's a group of bone dragons." Exclamations like thunder shook everyone's nerves. It can be said that they have lived all their lives, and they never thought that they would be able to see the existence of dragons in this world. Moreover, it still seems to be a bone dragon from hell. Facing the moment before, clamoring that Wei Wei can only fall from the sky. The four giant bone dragons that suddenly appeared now, the relationship between the front and the back, I am afraid it is about to come out. Chapter 558 _ You are not qualified at all. The huge desert, the confrontation between the Revolutionary Army and the King's army. At this moment, it was as if he had been immobilized, and he was stunned in place. Looking at the four huge bone dragons hovering in the sky, under the rolled-up sand. Cobra woke up first, and hurriedly shouted, "Hurry back and make a way, everyone, don't be impatient, don't cause panic." The hasty reminder words made everyone in the field like a sculpture wake up one after another. It can be said that Cobra, who was the first to react, clearly showed the overall situation of being an emperor. Facing the sudden scene in front of them, the rebel army was obviously unable to stand, and they all pulled away and quickly retreated. Seeing this scene, the royal army also took the initiative to retreat. Soon, a 1,000-meter blank area appeared in the huge desert. Everyone's eyes turned and locked on the four-skull dragon in the sky. Roar! The voice of the dragon roared again. A huge bone dragon suddenly incited Senbai's bone wings and hovered in the void. The huge body of dozens of meters gives the feeling that it is like a hill. When they saw the figures standing on the head of the bone dragon, everyone's pupils suddenly shrank. A moment ago, they were still guessing, who has such a pomp to control such terrifying bone dragons soaring in the sky? It never occurred to me that Belle, one of the patron saints of Alabasta, and Princess Wei Wei were among them. As soon as she saw the bone dragon, she laid her arrogant head on the desert, and Wei Wei, who stood on the bone dragon's head, was the first to lose her breath and quickly rushed towards Cobra. "Father, it's fortunate that you're fine, otherwise Wei Wei would be very sorry." Seeing the familiar face that had suddenly slammed into his arms, Cobra's eyes suddenly became Yuhi. He couldn't help stroking Wei Wei's hair, and said, "Girl, just come back. Don't run out at will in the future. You shouldn't be responsible for this kind of thing. It's the incompetence of your father that put you in danger." Looking at Cobra, who has always been tough and dignified as a king, now there is a hint of crying between his words. Undoubtedly, the atmosphere in the field, which was originally tense, has eased a little. Even Kosha, who was originally holding Cobra who was going to kill Cobra, changed his expression slightly and fell into silence. However, his eyes are still more on the skull of the bone dragon and the others. In the face of such debut cards, it was completely beyond Kosha's cognition. He needs to urgently find out who is in charge, so that he can take the initiative of the matter and master in his hands. It is also possible to obtain a favorable situation for the next negotiation. However, as soon as the idea came to her mind, Vivi broke free from Cobra's embrace and hurriedly said, "Father, I left this time because I sneaked into the Baroque work club. I suspect that they used dance fans to plan to work in this country. Inside, create chaos so that the mastermind behind the scenes, the sand crocodile Rockdar in the Shichibukai, gets the regime of Alabasta." Quote. So, this time, in order to resolve this matter, Mr. Uchiha Chinyu and I have reached a cooperation agreement. Having said that, Wei looked at Chinyu subconsciously and said, "As long as he can solve the crisis in our Alabasta, we will give them the rapeseed port for 50 years. Give the port of rapeseed flowers." As soon as these words came out, the scene caused an uproar. It can be said that Alabasta is now facing severe drought and desertification. The remaining large ports have long been abandoned. Only the rapeseed port remains, which is still in normal operation. However, as soon as Princess Wei opened her mouth, she told them that in order to solve the internal and external problems of Alabasta, the most important port would be sent out for 50 years. Not to mention the king's army, even the rebel army could not accept it. "Vivi, do you know what you're talking about? The rapeseed port is now the economic lifeline of our Alabasta. You sent it out as soon as you opened your mouth, which made our Alabasta worse." Kosha took the lead in sinking. Unable to hold his breath, he roared in anger. "Even if you say that Baroque Works and Shichibu Heike Rock Doll are behind the scenes, do you think that these 4 bone dragons alone can save us Alabasta? If you want to pay this kind of price, you might as well give me the lifeline of Alabasta and let me, Kosha, lead everyone to victory." The awe-inspiring voice was mixed with a sonorous and powerful taste between the lines. However, just after these words fell, the indifferent voice suddenly sounded with a taste that directly hit the soul. "By you. No qualifications at all." Hearing simple words, Chinyu's clothes moved without wind, and under the flying magic, he slowly floated up on the bone dragon's head. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves. Facing the leader of his rebel army, he was actually questioned in public. Many people's hearts are full of anger. However, before they could react, a low roar roared out from Chinyu's body. Boom! Dormant in Chinyu's body, the magic power like a raging wave was suddenly detonated. The pitch-black, ink-like horse training, with a fierce attitude, directly hit the clouds in the sky. The rolled-up air wave swept away in a rolling manner. Flying sand and walking under the stone even made the horse fall to the ground. However, all this is just the beginning. Looking at the endless black fog, slowly walking out of the huge white bone body, everyone's pupils shrank suddenly. At this moment, they finally knew what the origins of the 4 bone dragons entrenched in the sky were. When Chinyu's steps landed on the desert, the endless magic power rising from the sky suddenly collapsed. The scene that was like flying sand and stone was completely subsided. However, looking at the huge white skeleton in front of him, at this moment, the huge desert was enveloped in an inexplicable depressing breath, as if there was an invisible big hand tightly clenching their hearts. Especially Cobra, he is not comparable to other rebels. As the king of a country, he has an intelligence system that not only covers the whole country, but also knows a little about what happened abroad. In particular, he is also a celestial dragon, and he is more aware of the big event that happened in the Chambord Islands not long ago, and the public execution of the celestial dragon. If he remembered correctly, he had seen the reports of the person in front of him from the news not long ago. However, since he was so devastated by the rebellion at the time, he didn't take it to heart. Seeing Chinyu displaying the posture of the Bone King, those memories were directly evoked. However, before he could speak, Gaka, who was beside him, had already exclaimed. He is the big skeleton demon who publicly executed the Tianlong people and offered a reward of 1 billion. Chapter 559 _ He is not 800 million. Skull Demon, offering a reward of 1 billion. Kosha couldn't help but be startled, and even the others were dazed. For ordinary people like them, a billion is an astronomical number, but more comes from a dazed sense of power. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Chinyu exerted a huge magical pressure. I'm afraid he wouldn't even know what this concept was. Kosha, I know you don't understand. What does this mean? Let me explain. Cobra glanced at Chinyu timidly, and hurriedly said after realizing that he did not mean to stop. I believe everyone has already known about Shichibu Heike Rock Doll. G Rock Doll. Kosha subconsciously nodded and said, that guy, he has occupied the rain banquet for the past few years, and from time to time he has beaten some foreign pirates and saved a lot of civilians. I heard that among the pirates, his strength is also top-notch, and he has been recognized by the world government. In the face of Kosha's remarks, many rebel armies, and even the king's army, couldn't help but nod their heads in agreement. It can be said that in their eyes, the strongest and most arrogant man they have ever seen is K-Rockdal. Looking at this scene, Cobra took out a piece of the reward, which looked a little old. This is something that Cobra wore to remind himself when Crocodar appeared in Alabasta. He never believed that a vicious big pirate would put down his body and be a good person. Only a little brain knows. Looking at the reward order that was suddenly taken out, I was stunned at first, and then they all narrowed their eyes and looked at the reward order. Is it 800 million? It looks like this skeleton demon is a little better than Rockdale. However, with this disparity in strength, is it possible to win steadily? The chattering discussion sounded one after another. However, before they could discuss the result, an exclamation suddenly came out. No, you see, 800 million. A reward of 80 million, he is not 800 million. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with a magical sound, and it echoed in the huge desert for a long time, and there was no way to disperse it. Looking at the horrifying posture of standing on the yellow sand, like a bone skeleton, many people couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Especially the person who just said that his strength is about the same, and he will win steadily. His legs trembled like a twist, and he fell to the ground with a thud, begging for mercy in a hurry. Sir, I'm sorry, I offended you with my shallow eyes, please let me go. The violent scene made the originally depressing situation sink even more. In their eyes, there is an existence known as the top powerhouse at sea, and it is also good to offer a reward of 800 million. The current skeleton demon has been offered a reward of 1 billion. If you use a bounty to measure your own strength, the difference is more than 10 times, which is simply astronomical. Of course, Chinyu will not correct this misunderstanding. He wants to establish a station in Alabasta. The seeds of fear must first be planted in their hearts, so that they can act easily in the future. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, the fidelity of Ain's OOAL gong has been increased to 60%. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you have obtained the 6th order magic weather manipulation. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, get the super magic world change. The sound of the system's ethereal reminders sounded one after another, causing Chinyu to raise his brows, and then he couldn't help but laugh. The 6th order magic weather manipulation can change the weather with the strength of magic. In the original book, when the Bone King invited the Blood Emperor to the Great Tomb of Naxali, he used this trick to turn a rainy day into a sunny day. Is the same level as Chinyu's previous master, Skyfall. However, the Skyfall is a powerful attack magic. The change of the sky and the earth can not only change the weather, but also turn the water into a desert and the lava into an iceberg with the caster. It can be said that once Chinyu masters this trick, he will be able to suppress the awakening of the opponent's devil fruit ability to some extent. After all, driving the devil fruit ability, assimilating all the surrounding buildings and rock formations, etc., requires absolutely a lot of physical strength and fruit strength. Once the opponent succeeds, Chinyu will use heaven and earth change to change the fruit world of assimilation. For example, facing the red dog, the sky is filled with lava blessing, and the next moment it turns into the rolling water of the Yangtze River. It would be a nightmare for him. However, the only thing that made Chinyu feel regret was the premise of changing the world, which required his own magic power as the basis. This means that the scope of what can be changed will be limited. Your Excellency Ains, my father wants to talk to you about the details of the transaction, and Kosha, the leader of the rebel army, also wants to participate in the negotiation. Vibi's hesitant voice suddenly sounded. Chinyu's thinking retreated from the space of consciousness, the darkened soul eyes, the flames soared again, and said, "No problem." In Chinyu's eyes, negotiating without negotiation means nothing at all. It can be said that he will soon become the savior of this country. But passing through the door is also a guest, and Chinyu does not have so much mind to manage this huge country, and he needs to use the guise of manpower. "Are you here? Why don't we move to Jubane?" Kosha hesitated for a moment. For this, Cobra nodded silently. After seeing Chinyu's power with his own eyes, and the amount of the bounty more than 10 times that of K. Rockthal, he was obviously in awe. At least, in the desert in front of them, they can't do the so-called negotiation. "It's too troublesome, no need," Chinyu said coldly. The scepter in his hand slammed down towards Wangsha. The endless black fog rolled backwards, and the white bone emperor chair made of skeletons quickly condensed under the watchful eyes of the public. A conference table more than 10 meters long quickly opened. At the same time, several chairs were added around for them to sit on. Of course, compared with Chinyu's king chair, the others are obviously a bit shabby. However, in the face of this scene in front of them, what they care about is not shabby or shabby. On the contrary, it is the means in front of me, which I can change with my hands. At least, this has subverted their cognition. "Just sit down, my guests." Chinyu sat down with a scepter in hand. Soul flame jumping eyes swept across the field and said, "Tell me, what do you think? As long as it is reasonable, I will consider it as appropriate." The voice fell, and immediately pulled back everyone's thoughts. However, before Kosha could speak, Cobra hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Lord Ains, we don't have any excessive demands. It's just that you have to lease the Rapeseed Port for 50 years, but it is now the only remaining port in Alabasta and our last economic lifeline. Do you think you can leave us a right to use it?" Chapter 560 give you a gift. Right to use. The flame of Chinyu's soul jumped slightly, he had already expected this request. However, his Narasok necropolis will be built on the Canola port. If it is to be shared, it will have an impact on his construction. At the same time, it will also weaken the mystery of the great tomb of Narisik, losing the shock it deserves. "I refuse, this is the premise of my transaction," Chinyu said in a deep voice. "Reject." The expressions of Cobra and Kosha changed drastically. "Do not." It should be said that even Wei Wei was no exception, and hurriedly said, "Lord Ains, can we pay the fee?" Alabasta originally had 4 major ports, but the other ports have long been abandoned due to the drought and Hefeng sand. As long as Lord Ains is willing to make concessions, after we have resolved the Krokdar matter, we will try again to restore the use of other ports. At that time, we will definitely hand over the Rapeseed Port to Lord Ains. The hasty words echoed in the desert, and everyone's eyes were locked on Chinyu's body. It can be said that Alabasta is now in the midst of internal and external troubles. A huge part of the place is even more severely aridified. Not to mention edible water, even the normal food supply must be transported in from the outside world. It is precisely because of this reason that things such as price gouging have occurred, making the already heavy life even worse. Now Chinyu took the rapeseed port away as soon as he opened his mouth. That means that they are completely cut off from the outside world. Unless you venture to a deserted dock with no supplies, it is impossible to obtain resources from the outside world. And the products of Alabasta are shipped out to sea. Don't worry, I will help you to restore the port. Chinyu stretched out his big bones and gently rubbed Weiwei's head in front of everyone's eyes. It's for the sake of your daring to trade with me. For Chinyu, who now has the new superpower magic, as long as there is enough milk, it is not a problem to turn the entire desert country of Alabasta into an oasis. However, he does not do such thankless things, and will only help as appropriate. Seeing Chinyu's intimacy, Weiwei's body froze, and the people around her even stared straight at her. After all, this is their high and unattainable princess. When was someone so frivolous? However, during this period of time, as long as people who have stayed on Chinyu's boat know it, it's a habit of his. They were also used to Chinyu's caressing. At least, the man in front of him won't do anything out of the ordinary. Seeing that Chinyu slowly withdrew his hand after stroking a few times, Cobra was about to say something. An urgent cry came quickly from a distance. Kosha, something bad happened. The water was poisoned at the last sight of Juba, and many camels were poisoned to death. A man rode a camel and rushed over. In the face of this violent scene, everyone in the rebel army suddenly turned pale. The last look at the source of water, for them, is the last resort for survival in Juba. If even this last source of water is lost, it means that they need to completely abandon Yuba and move to other places. Isn't the water source guarded 24 hours a day? Why is it poisoned? Where are those people? Kosha's expression changed, and he shouted in a hurry. Facing the questioning gazes of the crowd, Al said with a livid expression, "Dead, they were all killed by a knife. When we arrived, we found that most of the camels died of poisoning. This is God's extermination, our children of Juba." A depressing atmosphere suddenly enveloped the huge desert. Chinyu had just snatched the rapeseed flowers, and now Yuba's only water source has been poisoned again. For them, it was simply worse, causing the people in the field to be silent all of a sudden. "Your Excellency Ains, do you have a solution?" Weiwei bit Yuhi's lip and subconsciously looked at Chinyu, who was sitting on the White Bone King's chair. Her intuition told her that to disintegrate this predicament, perhaps only the person in front of her could do it. "Take me to sea, as a partner, or I will give you a gift." Chinyu stood up slowly while watching. The scepter in his hand suddenly stomped, and 4 huge bone dragons lowered their proud heads. "Let's go, your camels are a little slow, keep up with my pace." Chinyu was moving without any wind in his clothes. With one step, the whole person disappeared in place like a ghost out of thin air. It appeared again, and it had already performed a short-distance space shift, appearing on the bone dragon head dozens of meters away. Looking at this scene, the pupils of the people present suddenly shrank, and some people couldn't help rubbing their eyes to see if they were dizzy. However, more people are scrambling to get on the bone dragon. For them, it was a great honor to be able to ride on a dragon. It is even more bragging capital in the future. Let me ask, in the future, drink 2 more glasses, eat more side dishes, and say that Lao Su has ridden a bone dragon before, and that's so powerful, it's just arrogant. For a time, someone turned over and sat on the bone dragon, and some couldn't catch up, and hurriedly hugged their thighs. It is really old arms, old legs, cannot compete with young people, only eagerly rode a camel away. As for the king's army, Many people were also full of enthusiasm. It's just because of his identity and discipline that he can only look at Cobra. Okay, don't stare, go up according to your strength. Cobra laughed dryly and gave the order to sprint. However, he obviously ignored the temptation of the bone dragon for them. Tens of thousands of the king's army rushed over in an instant. Seeing that the sea of people almost drowned the bone dragon, Cobra couldn't help but said, "Belle, take me and Vivi up quickly, this is my first time riding a dragon. Also, take a picture of me, and I will hang it in the hall to enjoy it later." Seeing that the dignified king of Alabasta would do such a limitless thing, Wei Wei rolled her eyes helplessly and said, "No, I'll go back to Lord Ains. Also, father, the next time you do something humiliating, can you stop getting involved with me?" Looking at Vivi, who turned and left after throwing several Byakugan at once, Cobra was directly petrified in place. At the same time, the water source of Juba. There are already tens of thousands of people gathered here. I looked at the corpses and camels scattered around the deep pit where some water emerged from the excavation to 7 or 8 meters. The civilian's presence suddenly turned pale. He didn't notice at all 2 strange figures hiding in the crowd.